Ladies and gentlemen, rise and shine. It is football time here on the TKDS Sports Network of Fox Sports 980 AM Radio WONE. Jackson Lightcap, and I am joined with my partners for today's show, Matthew Pennington, and of course, and as always, John Snyder.
Yeah, I keep saying it every single week, but it doesn't change every single week. It's crazy to know that time has flown by as fast as it has. Week 1 of the postseason is in the books. Like I said, I'm going to keep saying it, and you're going to probably call me crazy for keep saying it over and over and over again every single week, but it doesn't mean that it's not changing. Time has been flying by so far this football season.
I know, it really has, and things have been really, really crazy, especially since we finally got postseason action. Everything, it means that much more, and we've got some games to go through. We've got a couple of upsets that we've got to talk about this week.
Yeah, there were quite a bit of upsets heading back in Week 11, and, you know, Matt, you hit it spot on. This season's flown by, and I think that's an understatement. This season has just been so quick. And I guess it's time flies when you're having fun. Matt, you calculated on our Thursday show, you calculated how many teams were left in the state of Ohio. I forget that number off the top of my head, but actually that number now cut in half. We're down to around within the 200s of high school football teams remaining across the state of Ohio.
It was 448 when I did the math in my head.
So 224 remain.
I double-checked it in my head, or double-checked it on a calculator. It was 448. You have that. It's 224, and the number is only going to keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller as the season goes on.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. I just hope that we get all the action in the next couple of weeks that we did. It has been awesome this week.
And hey, we have an action-packed show coming up for you guys here today. Action-packed show, we're going to talk about all the local teams here in the Southwest region of Ohio. Not to mention, we're back at making our Week 12 game picks. We had some standing updates that'll all be coming up in hour number 3 of our show. But hey, let's dive right into it. First and foremost, as always, we're talking about professional and college. We'll start with the college. Actually, we'll start with the prep academy level. The post-grad Pep Academy level, the Flight Academy will take on Wheeling's JV team this upcoming Sunday. That is the Flight Academy season finale. Heading back, we will see into the college world, the NCAA, we will see Wittenberg take on Wabash. Wittenberg last week played DePaul and ended up losing in overtime. They now fall to second in the NCAC. Wittenberg, they were up in that game 35-21, 20 unanswered points for DePaul with 12 minutes to play in the fourth. They get the overtime victory over the Tigers, and there was also a fight at the end of the game as well. So some tensions and tempers starting to flare. It really sets up for a great rivalry between Wittenberg and DePaul, but Wittenberg looking to bounce back against Wabash this upcoming Saturday. Well, today. Wilmington will play Heidelberg. Wilmington looking to try to get back in the win column. Dayton and the Flyers, they are on a bye week, a much-needed bye week. They will look to come out of the bye week and will snap a 5-game losing streak. Miami, Ohio will face off against the Ohio Bobcats, a big game coming up in the MAC Conference. Cincinnati, we talk about losing streaks. They're on one of their own, and it's only going to get harder. They will play on the road today against Oklahoma State University. And then, of course, last but not least, the Ohio State Buckeyes, they're on the road today in Madison, Wisconsin to take on the Badgers of Wisconsin.
And yeah, you talk about Cincinnati needing that bye week. I don't think you could say it really any differently. They started off the season, it seemed like red hot, but since then, it's really been struggle after struggle after struggle for this Bearcats team. And like you mentioned, it's only going to get tougher as this season goes on. Oklahoma State on the schedule. They've still got Kansas on the schedule, Houston, UCF, both of those two teams still on the schedule. I believe West Virginia is the other team that is still on UC's schedule. So you've got a few, and when I say easier, it's not really that much easier games in Houston and in UCF, but for UC, it's only going to keep getting tougher as the season goes on. You've just got to try to find a way to win games when it's possible.
Yeah, really tough season for the Bearcats, especially with last week's loss. I mean, anytime you have a loss against what's seen as a rival team in that Cyhawk rivalry, it's just one of those that really deflates me. And however, for a lot of other teams, Miami, Ohio in particular, they had the loss last week against Toledo, and they play Ohio this week, the Bobcats. That's both of those teams are tied at 3-1 atop the top. Buffalo is there in the division in the MAC as well. So a massive matchup coming up for the Redhawks. And if they can manage to pull this one off and keep the momentum going, then they may have the shot to get their win back against Toledo in the MAC title game.
And yeah, Miami, they've got two of their three bigger games of the season coming up. They've got obviously Ohio coming up this week, and then they've got Akron, which the reason that I say that it's 2 of 3 is because when it comes down to the East, Akron is not really a team that is fighting for one of those top spots. And then they've got Buffalo following that Akron game. If Miami comes away on top against Buffalo, if Miami comes away on top against Ohio, they should be holding that sole spot of the East. And then it's going to be possible that we see that rematch against Toledo like we saw Miami have last week. Toledo ended up coming away on top in that game. Miami is going to want revenge, and that might end up coming in the MAC championship game, but Miami's going to have to win against Buffalo, and they're going to have to win against Ohio this week if they want to have a chance at getting that rematch game and potentially getting revenge against Toledo in the MAC title.
Yeah, and Matt, you just mentioned Miami, Ohio. They've been tremendous so far this season. They did lose last week against Toledo. Toledo, another top team in the MAC that you have to keep an eye out on. And you mentioned Buffalo, and fun fact about Buffalo, one of their running backs is former Mr. Football in the state of Ohio, Lamar Sperling. He won it last season, so something to keep an eye out if you're an Ohio high school football fan. Matt, John, I want to shift focus back to Cincinnati. Matt, you and I talked about this earlier, way back, probably a couple of weeks ago on air. But obviously, first-year struggles for head coach Scott Satterfield. And again, I know a lot of people, because UC has proven to be a dominant program, especially over the last couple of years, made it into the Final Four. And I know a lot of people are going to go out there and want to say that they should can him. But at the end of the day, it's his first year, and you always have that gap year as a head coach, especially at the college level, until you get your recruits in.
And yeah, it's always going to be a struggle for first-year head coaches. You're going to see struggles more than you're going to see success in year one seasons for coaches, whether it be a new offensive coordinator, whether it be a new defensive coordinator, a new head coach. You're going to see struggles more than you're going to see success in the first season. And usually some of the scenarios where you see success right out of the gate, that coach has already been in the system. That coach has already been through the system as an offensive coordinator or as a defensive coordinator. So they know what the system has. They know what they're capable of doing with the system in place, and they're already used to it. Usually that's where you're going to see a majority of the success from first-year head coaches. I mean, you take a look at Ryan Day. He was an offensive coordinator for the Buckeyes. He was already in the system. He already knew what the system had at hand, and success came right away. But then you take a look at Satterfield. It's not to say success will not come for the UC Bearcats, but a brand new head coach, that wasn't in the system. It's not always guaranteed that you're going to see success right out of the gate. Sometimes it's going to take time. I mean, talking about new head coaches, new defensive coordinators, new offensive coordinators, you take a look at the defensive coordinator for the Ohio State Buckeyes, Jim Knowles. He's new to the system. The defense is starting to look good now, but it didn't look good early on. It's going to take time. You're going to see growing pains for whether it's a defensive coordinator, whether it's a new offensive coordinator, whether it's a new head coach. You're going to see new head coaches occasionally be super, super successful, but it's not always a guaranteed for new head coaches that are new to the system to be successful right out of the gate. It's never a guarantee. Sometimes you're going to see growing pains. More times than not, you're going to see those growing pains. Sometimes you do see those diamonds in the rough that are going to be very, very successful right out of the gate, but it's never a guarantee. It's not going to be a guarantee. You're going to see those growing pains, and if you stick with it, those growing pains are soon going to ease themselves out, and you're going to start seeing success by those new head coaches.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Jim Knowles. I was about to mention the similarities that I'm seeing between Scott Satterfield and Jim Knowles. The defense last year for Ohio State was actually kind of a big struggle. I especially remember in the Michigan game, the corners and the secondary giving up a ton of big plays in that game. And so needing that time period to implement your own system, whether it be in practices or through recruits, is such a critical thing. And it's why coaches have 2-3 year on the job so that they can get their recruits in, get their system in place. Not to mention, especially since he's in a new conference, they're in the Big 12, a tougher conference than what the AAC was. And you're going up against teams like Oklahoma, Iowa State, Kansas State, a fairly significant bump in competition. So I can understand the fall off from Cincinnati, a program that, again, is a very solid one, but is just having a bad season right now. And once those growing pains are ironed out, as you said, man, and they can get guys who are more familiar with the system, I firmly believe that Cincinnati can compete in the Big 12. They just need time to do it.
Let's shift our focus away from college into the professional world. 2 games across the state of Ohio. The Cleveland Browns, they will be in Seattle to face the Seattle Seahawks. That should be a tremendous game, and possibly the game of the week. The Cincinnati Bengals, the question is, will coming off the bye kick their offense into high gear? They'll be going up against a very good 49ers, but a little bit of a banged-up 49ers squad. Deebo Samuel is doubtful to play this upcoming Sunday. Doesn't mean that he won't, but he is doubtful. Brock Purdy was back at practice, even having to go through concussion protocol earlier on in the week. It's trending like he may play. If he does not, it will be Sam Darnold. And then, of course, the offensive tackle, one of the best, if not the best offensive tackles in the league, Trent Williams. He's questionable for the game. So this is a 49ers squad that's a little banged up. The Bengals, maybe a must-win game, especially against the banged-up 49ers squad, because they're coming off the bye. They're rested. They're healthy. They're ready to go.
And yeah, I would say it's more of, at least when it comes to, and it was one thing that we have talked about quite a bit, for the Cincinnati Bengals, it's more of a must-win game when it comes down to top of the AFC North. When it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals and their chances of potentially being on top of the AFC North, this is more of a must-win game, especially with the fact that, I mean, I say it's more of a guaranteed opportunity, but Baltimore has Arizona this upcoming week. The reason I say that it's not guaranteed, the reason I say it's more of a guaranteed win, but you never want to jump the gun, is because people were saying that Dallas was going to be a guaranteed win. And when people were saying that Dallas was going to have a guaranteed win against this Cardinals team, but when it comes down to Bengals and having a must-win game, it's more of a must-win game when it comes to AFC North and AFC North hopes for the Cincinnati Bengals team, because it's only going to get tougher as the season goes on. If the Bengals lose this game against the 49ers, it's only going to be more of an uphill climb, and it's only going to be more of an uphill battle for this Bengals team to be that top team in the AFC North, especially with the fact that the start when it comes to AFC North competition for the Bengals, not the way the Bengals wanted to start off this season. So when it comes down to potential AFC North title for the Bengals, this is a must-win game. When it comes down to potential playoffs for the Cincinnati Bengals, potentially a wild card team, you obviously would love to get this win against the 49ers, but the whole world isn't going to be crashing down on you if you're Cincinnati if you can't find a way to take down San Francisco, especially with the fact that you've got a struggling Bills team the very following week.
Absolutely. Hey, guys, let's get into what we're paid to do. High school football coming up next here on the TKDS Sports Network and Fox Sports 980 AM Radio WONE.
It's easy to take the air in your home for granted. But it's not just about being hot or cold. It's about having clean air. For some of us, this is critical. At McAfee, we'll provide you with long-term solutions to improve the air you breathe.
Do you need your inhaler, bud?
Oh, I'm good, thanks.
Breathe easy. Choose McAfee. At McAfee, we understand that life doesn't stop when something in your home breaks down. Our customers count on us to be there, ready when they need us.
Is there anything else you need from me?
No, sir. I have all the information I need.
Great, thanks. Just lock the door on the way out.
Thank you.
Let us get your home up and running again. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
Come on, guys, let's call Daddy. Hi, Daddy. Hi.
How you doing?
So the furnace is on its last leg, babe.
And I just don't know what to do.
I wish I could be there to help.
Being away is always difficult, but it doesn't mean you can't make decisions together. You can count on us to keep your family comfortable.
Hey, buddy. How's it going?
I'm just gonna keep talking for a bit.
It's gonna be soon. Faster than you know it, I'll be home.
Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
We welcome you back here to Fox Sports 980 AM Radio WONE and the TKDS Sports Network. Jackson Lycat, Matthew Pennington, Jonathan Snyder with our producer back at base, Sebastian McCrae. And you know, this is the time of year where teams are starting to get eliminated. We have a lot more time to go into detail and go into depth on some of these games, talk about more about some of these teams, especially the teams that will be moving on, because instead of going through, what is it? I think 18 conferences of scores or something along those lines for this show. Now all we have to talk about is 7 divisions, and the teams within those divisions we talk about, unfortunately, are just going to become less and less each and every week. So we may actually have a little bit more time to go into detail on all the games. We'll start with Region 28. That's Division 7. And Region 28, Division 7, we saw the number 1 seeded Marion Local Flyers continuing their winning streak. They're looking for another state title. They took down number 16 Tri-County North 63-0. They will have an upcoming matchup this upcoming week against Cedarville, who was the 8 seed, who knocked off Lehman Catholic 42-28. The number 13 seed, New Bremen, pulling the upset. It was an upset when it comes to seeding, but we all called that upset here. They take down number 4 Cincinnati College Prep Academy 35-0. Number 5 Minster takes down number 12 Bradford 50-8. New Bremen and Minster, we will have a MAC conference matchup here in round 2 of the OHSA postseason, a 13 versus 5. Number 2 Ansonia destroys number 15 Laughlin 52-7. And number 10 Mechanicsburg takes down number 7 St. Bernard Elmwood Place 40-14. Ansonia and Mechanicsburg will meet in round 2 of the OHSA playoffs. And last but not least, 2 upsets here. Number 14, St. Henry takes down number 3, Riverside by a final score of 28-5. And number 11, Fort Loramie takes down number 6, Southeastern, 42-35. So 2 upsets there. Fort Loramie, who was away in round number 1, they will have a home playoff game in round number 2. It'll be Fort Loramie and St. Henry squaring off a 14 versus 11 seed.
And yeah, it's one conference that we talk about constantly being a powerhouse, and a conference that we continuously talk about being a conference that it doesn't matter what their seed is in the postseason. Whoever is facing off against a team out of this conference, you have to play your best football, and you have to play great football if you want to even have a chance to compete against these teams. And it's the teams inside of the MAC conference. Marion Local out of the MAC. Dominant first round win, 63-0. Obviously, they were the number 1 seed. You kind of expect dominance, at least in the early rounds, from a number 1 seed being out of the MAC conference. But then you take a look at the other MAC teams. Minster, they were expected to win against Bradford. They did it convincingly, a 5 versus a 12 seed. 50-8 was the final score of that game. And then you've got New Bremen, a MAC team. Like you said, Jackson, we kind of, at least myself, and I would assume, I'm pretty sure John was in the same boat, and I'm pretty sure you were in the same boat too, Jackson. We expected New Bremen to play a better game. I don't think we were expecting this big of an upset and this dominant of a win from New Bremen, but you kind of felt like with this Cardinals team, an upset was looming for New Bremen. And then you move down to another big upset that we saw, 14-seeded St. Henry coming out of the MAC conference. That was an upset I didn't see happen. I didn't expect this to happen. I expected Riverside to take this game against St. Henry, but I expected it to be a closer game because it was a Three Rivers Conference Riverside versus a MAC Conference St. Henry team. I did not expect 28-5 to be the final score of that game in favor of St. Henry.
Yeah, we talk the MAC all the time, and with very good reason. How about this for a stat? 7 out of the 8 MAC teams that entered the first round of the playoffs won their game. So I remember seeing something when I was doing my research that said, I can't remember who said it, but they said that the MAC is Marion Local and everyone else. I can promise you that is not the case. Marion Local is good. They're probably the class of the MAC this year. But all of these other teams that have been really competitive in the MAC this year, talking Anna, New Bremen, especially St. Henry, a team that was near the bottom of the conference, going up against a Riverside team who won the Three Rivers Conference, who had the second highest scoring offense in the Three Rivers Conference. And they hold them to 5 points. Just an incredible win and an incredible showing for the MAC.
Yeah, John, and exactly as you said, I mean, the MAC conference is absolutely incredible, and the amount of teams that have moved on. And John, I think you mentioned this last week on our show. When it comes to the MAC, it's almost like they play, since they play other MAC schools, it's almost like they're playing their own version of the OHSA playoffs, and not just the early rounds, but the later rounds, the state Final Four, the state championship. And the MAC conference has been absolutely outstanding. Matt, John, one team I want to focus on, and this is an 11 seed that I did expect to come out with a win over Southeastern, because we take a look at Fort Loramie. And Fort Loramie, you look at the season that they've been able to have in years past. You look at the program that they've been able to put together up north in years past. They've been dominant. There's something in the water up at Fort Loramie because they have been absolutely tremendous as a program. And they schedule tough. So yes, even though for Fort Loramie standards, it's been a bit of a down year, you look at their regular season schedule and look at some of the teams they played. They played a lot of schools from the Midwest Athletic Conference, and we just talked about how great the MAC is. So you look at Fort Loramie, the strength of schedule that they played in the regular season, obviously that's going to translate into the postseason. And Fort Loramie, the 11 seed, getting the upseed over 6 seed Southeastern.
And yeah, you talk about Fort Loramie playing a tough schedule. It's the MAC conference, and then you also have to give props to, and we talk about the MAC conference so much because of how dominant and how competitive the MAC conference is, but in that same area of the state, you also have to give props, and you also have to give credit to the Shelby County Conference that Fort Loramie comes from. Wapakoneta, inside of the Shelby County Conference. You've got Salina. They're also in the Shelby County Conference. Both of those teams, pretty good teams that you're going to have to face off against in the regular season. When it comes to overall competition, I think that the MAC Conference takes a little bit of an edge over the Shelby County Conference, but when it comes down to competitiveness, when it comes down to getting yourself ready for the postseason, the Shelby County Conference kind of flies under the radar, and the Shelby County Conference is not talked about as much, but that's just because they're in the same area of the state as the MAC. And when you take a look at dominant conferences, when you take a look at conferences that are going to get yourself ready for the postseason, most people talk about the MAC conference, but the Shelby County Conference is also a very tough conference to play in, and the Shelby County Conference is also a conference that is going to get teams ready for the postseason.
Yeah, just very solid conference and a very under conference, just in general. But looking at some of these matchups for next week, you're seeing St. Henry and Fort Loramie, which is going to be an incredible matchup. Ansonia Mechanicsburg, another MAC matchup, New Bremen and Minster. And it's got some really solid games. And you almost have to wonder, for as good as Fort Loramie is, if St. Henry, I think they have a legit shot at pulling it off. And all of a sudden, you've got a date with potentially Ansonia in regional semifinal, which, considering St. Henry's MAC record, I don't think anybody would have seen coming. For as good as St. Henry is, just an incredible performance.
Yeah, I mean, again, Fort Loramie, that's a tremendous school. And there's a couple of low seeds here in this region that I certainly believe can make a run. Those schools include Fort Loramie, St. Henry, whoever wins that game. Those teams, very tough conferences. They have a chance to make a run. New Bremen, of course, they were the reigning Division 7 state champions for a reason, so that's another team to keep an eye out on. It's time for a break. You're watching us on the TKDS Sports Network and listening on Fox Sports 980 AM Radio WONE.
At McAfee, we understand that life doesn't stop when something in your home breaks down. Our customers count on us to be there, ready when they need us.
Is there anything else you need from me?
No, sir, I have all the information I need.
Great, thanks. Just lock the door on the way out.
Thank you.
Let us get your home up and running again. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
Any luck with
Come on, guys, let's call Daddy. Hi, Daddy.
How you doing?
So the furnace is on its last leg, babe.
And I just don't know what to do.
I wish I could be there to help.
Being away is always difficult, but it doesn't mean you can't make decisions together. You can count on us to keep your family comfortable.
Hey, buddy, how's it going?
When are you coming home?
It's gonna be soon. Faster than you know it, I'll be home.
Breathe easy. Choose McAfee. It's easy to take the air in your home for granted. But it's not just about being hot or cold. It's about having clean air. For some of us, this is critical. At McAfee, we'll provide you with long-term solutions to improve the air you breathe.
Do you need your inhaler, bud? Oh, I'm good, thanks.
Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
Well, folks, just another reminder, if you're watching live on the TKDS Sports Network, we are live in chat, so make sure to drop any comments down below. We'll display them if we like them enough. Obviously, we're not going to display every comment because that could get us in quite a bit of trouble, but yeah, we're live in chat, so we see everything. Jackson Lycat, Matthew Pennington, and Sebastian McCray, our producer. Unfortunately, some bad news. Jonathan Snyder, we were not able to get his service working. Remember, he's calling in from Bluffton, Ohio. That's where he resides right now. So we've been having him call into this show. There is a bit of a service issue. So unfortunately, Jonathan Snyder, he will not be with us the rest of the show.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's been some, at least when it comes to connection issues, it's been struggles on that in that area and in that field, but hopefully we can get it figured out for future shows, and hopefully we can just get it situated and figured out so we can have John on the air and we can have him continue to be on the show with us.
We love his input, does a tremendous job, and yeah, it just, that's all I got to say. Moving on, let's go on to Division 6. We're going to go into Division 6, a couple of regions to talk about here. We will start with Region 24. Region 24 in Division 6. Number 1 seed Williamsburg blanks number 16 seed Dixie. This is a typical game of slaughtering the lambs, I guess, is what TJ Downing likes to say. We've interviewed him a couple of times on this show. Well, the number 1 seed Williamsburg takes down number 16 seed Dixie 73-0. Number 8 seed Anna takes down and beats number 9 seed Allen East 58-28. Anna and Williamsburg will have a date next Friday in round 2 of the OHSA playoffs. Number 4 seed West Liberty Salem destroys number 13 seed Valley by a score of 47-7, and number 5 seed Tri-Village blanks number 12 seed National Trail 35-0. Tri-Village will take a trip to West Liberty Salem next Friday night for a typical 4 versus 5 seed. Number 2 seed Versailles blanks number 15 seed Troy Christian 40-0, and number 7 seed Twin Valley South destroys number 10 seed Deer Park, who had 7. 34-7 was the final score on that. Versailles, Twin Valley South, they will meet next week. And last but not least, in Region 24, number 3 seed Cincinnati Country Day destroys number 14 seed Dayton Christian by a score of 63-13. They will face off against Paint Valley. Paint Valley, they are the 6th seed as they beat Parkway, who were the 11th seed, by a score of 37-23.
And yeah, Paint Valley, they can hold that win high because that is, like John mentioned, Parkway is the only MAC school that got knocked out in the first round of the postseason last night. So Paint Valley, you've got to feel pretty happy with yourselves and pretty proud with yourselves. Obviously, it was a 6 versus 11 seed, so you would feel that and you would hope that if you're Paint Valley, with the fact that you're the 6th seed, you had the better seeding, you want to be the team that comes away on top, but we saw St. Henry as a MAC school be a 14 seed and take down Riverside. And then we also saw in Division 7, New Bremen, the 13 seed out of the MAC, take down a 4 seed Cincinnati College Prep. So at least when it comes down to the seeding, it's never guaranteed that you're going to be able to take down a MAC school. So like I said, Paint Valley, you got to feel pretty happy with yourselves and pretty proud of that first round to take down Parkway in the first round.
And not only that, but Region 24, this is a region where you're not going to see a whole lot of this. And in fact, I think we won't see this again on the rest of the show. Region 24, Division 6, Region 24, out of all the regions in the Southwest region that we will be talking about, Region 24 is the only region where the high seed and the home seed won every single game. Teams seeds 1 through 8, they were victors yesterday in Region 24. You scroll down the list, and you can't say that about any other region we're going to talk about on this show.
And yeah, just all of the regions that we cover, you're not going to see it at all. You're only going to see, throughout the remainder of this show, there is going to be at least one upset in every single region that we're going to talk about throughout the remainder of the show. So Region 24, kind of keeping it neat and tidy and keeping it to what is expected of the seeded teams you're usually going to see and what's going to be expected in pretty much any single bracket that you're going to cover in sports. If it goes by the books, you're going to see 1 seed win, you're going to see the 2 seed win, you're going to see the 3 seed, 4 seed. If it's up to 16 total seeded teams, you're going to see 1 through 8 win, and you're going to see 9 through 6 get knocked out in the first round. And then if it stays neat and tidy, you're going to see 1 through 4 win the second round. You're going to see 5 through 8 get knocked out in the second round. And that's going to continue until you see the number 1 seed win the region or win the overall bracket / tournament that you want to, or that you're going to see within whatever region or within, well, it's going to be regions because the other big tournament that comes to mind for me is March Madness, and you have the Western region for that bracket and for that tournament. So it's kind of similar when it comes down to it. So you've got Region 24. It's going to be the only region, at least, that we're going to talk about that you're going to see that neat and tidy 1 win, that 1 seed win, the 8 seed win, 7 seed, 6 seed, 5, 4, 3, 2. Every single better seeded team in Region 24 came away with a win last night.
And yeah, you know, Matt, one matchup that I have circled on my calendar, and I know you and I will be paying close mind to it. It's that number 4 seed versus number 5 seed next Friday night. Number 4, West Liberty Salem. Number 5, Tri-Village. Matt, we've been high on both of those teams all season long. We said Tri-Village is probably one of, if not the most underrated teams in the entire state of Ohio. Tri-Village, they weren't even ranked in the top 10 for the AP poll when it comes to Division 6 rankings because of their 1 loss to Ansonia. Remember, Ansonia, they're number 2 in the entire state for Division 7. They lost that game by 1 score. It seems like Tri-Village has been written off, if you will, because of that 1 loss. Nobody wants to pay mind to the Tri-Village Patriots. That is a really, really good football team, and that is a team out for blood right now. And then, of course, West Liberty Salem. They come out of a very tough Ohio Heritage Conference, and they put together a tremendous season. So 4 versus 5 at West Liberty Salem. If you guys have nothing going on next Friday night and you're in that region, if you're in that area, go check out that game because you will see some really good football next Friday night.
And yeah, the only time during the season I wrote off the Tigers of West Liberty Salem was when they had to face off against West Jefferson. Mm-hmm. That was the only time during the season that I wrote off this West Liberty Salem team, and the proof behind it is the fact that it was a game pick during our game pick segment, and I picked West Jefferson in that one.
And that was a good game, too.
It was an offensive explosion for both teams. I think
62-47, the final score in favor of West Jefferson. We're talking about West Jefferson and the Rough Riders here in just a few minutes as well.
I was going to say, it was either 47 or 49 or something along those lines, but that was the lowest score. That was the worst team in that matchup, and saying they were the worst team, it doesn't do justice for how good of a team they are. But West Liberty Salem, that was the only week in the season that I wrote them off. But like I said, it was because they were facing off against the Rough Riders. And if you've been paying attention to West Jefferson football, and if you've been paying attention to what Austin Busher has been putting on the table as a sophomore for that Rough Riders offense, you know that West Liberty Salem, that was going to be a tough game for that Tigers team, no matter what happened in that game against the Rough Riders of West Jefferson. But you talk about most people writing off this Tri-Village team. I'll tell you what, myself, I haven't written off Tri-Village at all this season. I know what this Patriots team is capable of. I know what this Patriots team can bring to the table. You talk about a lot of people writing them off after that loss to Ansonia. I have not written off this Patriots team. I might be one of those people that you call crazy and say, what are you doing siding with this Patriots team? I've been siding with Tri-Village just because what the program of Tri-Village and what the community of Tri-Village brings to the table, not just in football, but just as a whole in athletics. You talk about, especially in the WOAC, one of the more consistently dominant teams. Obviously, the one game they weren't dominant was against the number 2 team in the entire state for Division 7 football, and that's Ansonia, and they lost that game by 8. 30-22 was the final score of that game. I have not written off Tri-Village at all. I don't think that this Tri-Village team, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that they upset West Liberty Salem, but it's going to come down to whether or not that Tri-Village defense steps up in that game. If they're not able to slow down West Liberty Salem, what I'm saying is going to be completely irrelevant, and we're going to see West Liberty Salem take them down next week. But it's going to come down to whether or not that defense for the Patriots steps up. If they do, we're going to see the first upset in Region 24 this year in the postseason.
Yeah, Matt, exactly said. And let's shift our focus real quick to Region 23. There is one team we need to talk about in Region 23. That is West Jefferson and the Rough Riders, led by Austin Busher, the sophomore quarterback who's just been absolutely tremendous this season. They played Grove City Christian in round 1 of the playoffs. They win that one 45-14, and they will face the Buckeyes. No, not the Ohio State Buckeyes. That would be crazy. They are facing Nelsonville York and the Buckeyes next Friday night.
You know what? You say that they're not going to face off against the Ohio State Buckeyes. I would feel pretty bad for West Jefferson if they're second.
And they're one of the best teams in Division 6 in the state of Ohio. That just goes to show you the level of one of the top college teams to one of the top high school teams in the state.
Yeah, you talk about the competition that changes between high school and college and then the next level in the NFL. It's a conversation for a later time, but I think you're crazy if you think any college team can take down a professional NFL team. And I think you'd be crazy if you think that a team like St. Ed's can take down Ohio State. I just think that the competition level between college and NFL and the competition level between high school and college, it's a completely different animal, no matter what level you take it to. And even you can say the same level between JV and varsity for high school football. And you can say the same for freshman versus JV during high school football or any high school level. So it's a conversation for a later time, and it's a conversation for a different day, but I don't think if you talk about high school to college, college to NFL, it's a completely different animal, no matter what level you switch it to.
Absolutely. And I mean, you take a look at what these teams have been able to do. It's West Jefferson, they're one of the top teams in the entire state of Ohio. And West Jefferson, the Rough Riders, that is a really good football team. And I'm excited to see what they can do in Region 23. Time for a break. We'll be back on the TKDS Sports Network, Fox Sports 980, AM Radio, WONE.
It's easy to take the air in your home for granted. But it's not just about being hot or cold. It's about having clean air. For some of us, this is critical. At McAfee, we'll provide you with long-term solutions to improve the air you breathe.
Do you need your inhaler, bud? Oh, I'm good, thanks.
Breathe easy. Choose McAfee. It's easy to take the air in your home for granted. But it's not just about being hot or cold. It's about having clean air. For some of us, this is critical. At McAfee, we'll provide you with long-term solutions to improve the air you breathe.
Do you need your inhaler, bud? Oh, I'm good, thanks.
Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
Well, we welcome you back here to Fox Sports 980 AM Radio WONE and the TKDS Sports Network. Jackson Lightcap alongside Matthew Pennington. We are moving along in our show. We just went through Division 7 and 6. Let's move on to Division 5. When it comes to Division 5, we have a couple regions to talk about. We're starting with Region 20 as the number 1 seeded Valley View Spartans. They uphold that number 1 seed as well as they take down number 16 seed Westfall 55-7. Number 8 seed Bethel Tate takes down Blanchester, who were the 9 seed, 35-20. Bethel Tate and Valley View will match up in round number 2. Number 4 Zane Trace beats number 13 Middletown Madison by a score of 24-14. And number 5 seed Purcell Marion beats number 12 seed Madera 55-14. Zane Trace and Purcell Marion, they will square off in round number 2. Number 2 Waynesville blanks number 15 seed Carlisle 38-0. Number 7 seed Northeastern beats and just edges out number 10 seed Greenview 14-7. Number 2 Waynesville, number 7 Northeastern, they have a date next Friday night against each other. Number 3 seed Brookville destroys and annihilates number 14 seed Miami East by a score of 55-3. And here's the only upset in Region 20, but there is an upset. Number 10 seed Preble Shawnee does take down number 7 seed Milton Union 28-17. They play Brookville next Friday night.
I'll tell you what, we talked about Region 24 being the only region we're going to talk about not seeing an upset. And Milton Union, all you had to do was take down Preble Shawnee to be the only other region that we were going to talk about that was going to be perfect. But yeah, that was one upset that, I'll tell you what, I brought it up here and there. I remembered at least myself talking about, you know what, I wouldn't be opposed to making that a game pick because I expected Preble Shawnee to play upset. And I wanted it to be a game pick. I'll tell you what, the only reason I wanted it to be a game pick is because, it's possible that I could have gained an edge on another person for them picking Milton Union as the better seeded team against Preble Shawnee. But that was just me trying to gain an advantage, over other people for that game picks because I expected the Arrows of Preble Shawnee to play spoiler and take down Milton Union, but we didn't make it a game pick. I'm not opposed to not making it a game pick. Like I said, I just wanted to have that potential advantage because it was an upset I saw happening.
Yeah, we talked about Milton Union last week on this show when we were going over the playoff brackets and what to look out for. And Milton Union, the Bulldogs, this is a team that was absolutely tremendous last season. And remember last season, the 2022 season, Matt, you and I were both saying, we're not going to go against Milton Union until they give us a reason to go against them. That's how good they were this season, or last season, I beg your pardon. This season, a little bit different. They struggled early on. They were destroyed by Valley View. And it just seems like the Milton Union Bulldogs just were not able to get any consistency. And even though they entered the playoffs as a 7 seed, they were the home playoff team. You and I both mentioned Milton Union, maybe a little too high for them, especially with the inconsistencies we've seen. Preble Shawnee, coming from a very tough Western Ohio Athletic Conference, goes into Milton Union and takes down the Bulldogs.
And yeah, that was one thing that you talk about, Jackson, and you talk about the difference a season makes for this Milton Union team. I mean, obviously, we saw in the regular season last year. In the regular season last year, we saw Milton Union win over Valley View. 24-14 was the final score of that game during the regular season. Obviously, it's tough to beat the same team twice in the same season. We saw that happen for Milton Union last year. We saw that Bulldogs team lose in the postseason. Well, I say postseason. It was a later game in the postseason, too. They lost to Valley View 21-7. That was the final score of that game. And I talked about last year because we had that game as a game pick. And you mentioned the fact that it was a phrase that I used constantly last year. You're going to have to prove to me that you can beat Milton Union for me to pick against this Bulldogs team. And like I said, and like you brought up, you're going to have to beat Milton Union for me to obviously consider picking against Milton Union. The only thing that was funny about that phrase was last year, we talk about, you're going to have to prove to me you can beat Milton Union for me to pick against them. Well, the only time we saw that happen was in the postseason where, as time went on, we couldn't pick Milton Union as a team to win a game after we saw them lose to Valley View. So we obviously talk about, and you brought it up, you're going to have to prove to us that you can beat Milton Union last year for us to pick against them. Well, there wasn't really a chance to pick against them after their loss to Valley View a season ago. But like you said, you talk about what a difference a season makes. You take a look at Milton Union this year against Valley View. Valley View won that game 60-7 during the regular season. And obviously Milton Union dropped a little bit in seeding. They were the 2 seed last year in the postseason. They were the 7 seed this year. But Preble Shawnee, you talk about playing a tough season in conference in the WOAC. Tell you what, played a little bit of a factor in it. Played a little bit of a difference and made a little bit of a difference in this game. Like we said, Preble Shawnee, the only team in Region 20 to play spoiler and to play an upset and to win an upset game in the postseason.
Yeah, and you take a look, and Matt, one thing I want to talk about is the top 3 seeded teams in Region 20, all coming out of the Southwestern Buckeye League. And it just goes to show you how the Southwestern Buckeye League has grown and has developed and has become a powerhouse conference here in the Southwest region of Ohio. The Southwestern Buckeye League, obviously Valley View, tremendous. Waynesville, tremendous. Brookville, tremendous. You have Valley View and Waynesville ranked in the top 10 for the AP poll for Division V football in the state of Ohio. Valley View, I believe they right now sit at 6. Waynesville, I believe they sit at 9. Brookville, they're an honorable mention. They're just on the outside looking in. They are a team that received more than 12 points. They're just not in the top 10 yet. Doesn't mean that they won't be in the top 10 later on. But Brookville, Waynesville, Valley View, such tremendous teams. And all coming from the Southwestern Buckeye League. And remember, when those teams met, it was a merry-go-round, it seemed like, between those teams. And that's just here in Division 5. We're going to talk about Bellbrook later on. We're going to be talking about a lot more teams coming up in the Southwestern Buckeye League. That is a tremendous team. That is a tremendous conference. And the Southwestern Buckeye League, it's really been great on how they've been able to grow and develop that conference over the last couple of years.
You talk about growing the conference and making the conference different, and you talk about building the conference like you mentioned. There's a couple different teams that we saw this year inside of the Southwestern Buckeye League last year. Edgewood was not inside of the Southwestern Buckeye League. They were a new team to the conference this year. I think Ross was the other team. We didn't see them in the Southwestern Buckeye League last year, but hey, like I said, you talk about building the conference, you talk about making the conference bigger and better. Tell you what, I don't think that you can say that the Southwestern Buckeye League was weaker this season as opposed to last year. There was definitely a little bit of an increase in competition level, and there was a little bit of an increase in competitive and, I would say, talk about dominant teams in the postseason. I mean, Waynesville, 38-0 over Carlisle. Brookville, 55-3 against Miami East. And then, like you mentioned, the Spartans of Valley View, 55-7 over Westfall. So, like I said, you talk about the dominance, you talk about the competitive level, and you talk about the competition level increasing inside of the Southwestern Buckeye League. I think it's safe to say it played a little bit of a factor, and I think it's safe to say that as seasons go on, we're going to continue to see a competition level increase inside of the Southwestern Buckeye League.
We're still talking Division 5 football, but let's shift our focus away from Region 20 and talk about the one team or the couple teams that we need to talk about in Region 18. Coldwater, they blank Indian Lake 47-0, and they will be taking on Archbold and Blue Streaks coming up next. Coldwater, another team coming out of that MAC conference, a very dominant MAC conference, and actually, this is the last MAC conference team we will be talking about on today's show. Again, Matt, only one MAC conference team getting knocked out. Coldwater, they're not one of them. They're moving on to round 2. No surprise there.
And yeah, I mean, we keep talking about it time in and time out. And I talk about phrases I repeat, and I talk about stuff I repeat. Like I said a couple times, time's been flying as we've been having fun. And another phrase I'll say, and another thing I'll keep talking about. And like I said, you might call me crazy for saying it, but the MAC is dominant.
I don't think that's a crazy statement at all. Yeah. The MAC conference is easily the number one conference in all of Ohio, not just for football, but you take a look at the total state championships that they bring in. I don't think that's crazy at all. That's not a hot take. The MAC conference, without a doubt, is the most dominant conference in the entire state of Ohio.
Like I said, I'm just thinking that some people might call me crazy for saying it every single week. Like I said, I think if you say I'm crazy for that, you can say I'm crazy, but I think
you're crazy, but for other reasons.
I was going to say, I think it's more of a valid point to call me crazy for saying every single week that time is flying as the season goes on. But like you said, I don't think it's completely out of the realm of possibility for saying that the MAC conference is one of the more dominant conferences in the entire state of Ohio. And like we said, I don't think it's too surprising that the only team we saw in the MAC lose was 2-8 Parkway, and they only lost by 2 touchdowns. Goes to show how competitive that conference is.
Absolutely. Folks, we will take a small little break. That will take us to the end of hour number 1 on this 3-hour show. Coming up next in hour number 2, we will continue our talk. We'll go through Division 4, 3, 2, and 1. We'll name all the scores. We'll name next week's matchup. That's all coming up in hour number 2 alongside Matthew Pennington. Once again, our producer back at base, Sebastian McCrae. You're watching us on the TKDS Sports Network and listening on Fox Sports 980 AM Radio, WONE.
It's easy to take the air in your home for granted. But it's not just about being hot or cold. It's about having clean air. For some of us, this is critical. At McAfee, we'll provide you with long-term solutions to improve the air you breathe.
Do you need your inhaler, bud? Oh, I'm good, thanks.
Breathe easy. Choose McAfee. It's easy to take the air in your home for granted. But it's not just about being hot or cold. It's about having clean air. For some of us, this is critical. At McAfee, we'll provide you with long-term solutions to improve the air you breathe.
Do you need your inhaler, bud? Oh, I'm good, thanks.
Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
Just another reminder, we are live in chat, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and more. If you're watching live on the TKDS Sports Network, we are live in chat. Make sure to drop your comments. Any complaints, comments, criticism, leave them all or see them all as well. We welcome you back to Sports Now here on Fox Sports 980 AM Radio WONE and the TKDS Sports Network. We're moving along in this show. We've talked about divisions 7, 6, and 5, and now let's move on to Division 4. We'll start with Region 16, the number 1 seed and the number 1 ranked team in the entire state of Ohio for Division 4 football, the Clinton Massie Falcons. They destroyed Dunbar, who were the 16th seed, 50-12. McNicholas takes down Eaton 41-20. That was a 9 over an 8 seed. And we will have a 1 seed versus a 9 seed, Clinton Massie versus McNicholas, coming up next Friday. That game could be a good one. Clinton Massie, they're stacked. But McNicholas, a sneaky good team. They hung with Hamilton Baden, who's Division 3, so crazier things have happened. That could be a very good game. Number 4 seed Alter blanks number 13 seed Roger Bacon by a score of 42-0. Number 5 seed Indian Hill over Reading, who was the 12th seed, 36-21. Indian Hill will square off against the Alter Knights next Friday. How about this? The upset possibly of the entire show we're going to talk about. This could be the upset, and Matt, you and I both called this on the show. 15 Urbana takes down the number 2 seed Chillicothe Unioto by a score of 56-21. The Sherman Tanks upset back-to-back years in round number 1. Number 7 seed Shawnee takes down number 10 seed Waverly 37-7. We will see 15 seed the Hill Climbers of Urbana take the road to face Springfield Shawnee coming up next Friday night. Number 3 seed Taft takes down number 14 seed McLean 39-7, and number 6 seed Wyoming destroys and annihilates and blanks Washington Courthouse, who was your 11 seed 42-0. Taft and Wyoming, that's got another makings to be a tremendous game upcoming next Friday night.
And yeah, you know what? You brought up the fact that McNicholas versus Clinton Massie, that could be an upset next week. But I think when it comes down to it, that is going to be an offensive shootout, I think, next week. I mean, you talk about McNicholas. I talked about this team. I mean, we talk about game picks here and there. Might be. Well, talk about game picks. That was a game pick we had last week. Clinton Massie might. I mean, you can. Do we want to make that a game pick next week? That's kind of where I'm getting at. I don't know. It's possible.
It's worth discussion. And you know, Matt, when we head in and we talk about the 1v9, Clinton Massie versus McNicholas, I'm going to personally go out and play it safe. I think Clinton Massie would take that game. And if that we do add that's one of our game picks, maybe a bit of a spoiler on who I would go with. Clinton Massie has just looked so dominant and too dominant for anybody to take them down this season until we get later into the postseason. But I will say this. You can't write off McNicholas. Because McNicholas, this is a team that has a very good offense. And this is a team that has really put things together over the last month of the season. They took down Bishop Fenwick 35-14. They took down Carroll 49-14. I understand those two teams did not make the postseason. But at the same time, when you're playing in a very tough Greater Catholic League co-ed conference, anything can happen. And Fenwick, this was a team that had high expectations at the beginning of the year. 4-0 to start the season, and then just completely fell off a cliff and fell out of the playoffs. So Fenwick, you know, with their full potential, that's a good football team. And then here's the couple of games that I have circled on McNicholas' schedule. Week 10 matchup against Baden. They were in the running at the time to have a GCL co-ed share at the title. They played Baden really close. And Baden is one of, if not the best team in the state of Ohio for Division III. The Rams, they've been so dominant over years past. Baden only beat them by 3. Really goes to show you the full potential what McNicholas has. And then against a very good Eaton team. We've talked about Eaton quite a bit. That's another team from the Southwestern Buckeye League. We talked about them in our last segment. Eaton, that is a tremendous team. That is a sneaky good team. And in Eaton, they took down Waynesville. Waynesville, they're ranked number 9 in the state of Ohio for Division 5. So when you look at McNicholas, and it wasn't like they just beat Eaton by a field goal or by a point. They blew them out by 3 scores, 3 touchdowns to be exact. McNicholas is a very, very good team. They had some beginning of the year's issues, starting off 1-3, playing off against a very great and very tough schedule. They started off 1-3 to begin the season, but since then, they have been 6-2. They've been playing their best football. The McNicholas Rockets, that is a team you cannot write off. Clinton Massey, if they write them off and take it easy and already look ahead for the next round, I don't want to say it's a trap game because it's in the playoffs, but we could see a possible upset. I will say this, Clinton Massey, if they play their style of football and play how they should, Clinton Massey should win this football game, but anything less than that, McNicholas can come in and take the upset.
And yeah, we talk about the Falcons, and like you said, I brought it up. It could be a potential upset, but I think Clinton Massey should be able to take the cake in that one. But, I mean, we've seen crazier things happen. We've seen crazier upsets here or there. Like I said, I did not see St. Henry winning in the first round of the postseason against Riverside, but they won by 23. And Clinton Massey, like I said, against McNicholas, I get the feeling this game is going to be a shootout against the Falcons and against the Rockets. And it was one thing that you brought up, Jackson. If Clinton Massey looks past this McNicholas team, if they look ahead to potentially week 3 where they could face off against Alter, or they could face off against Indian Hill. That's who they're going to potentially face off against in the 3rd round if they win against McNicholas. But if Clinton Massey, like I said, has that mindset of, oh, it's McNicholas, they're a 9 seed. I think we're going to look ahead to next week. If Clinton Massey has that mindset, watch out. McNicholas could play spoiler. But if they have in their mind that, all right, week 1 of the round 1 of the postseason, we won pretty big against Dunbar. All right, on to week 2. We've got McNicholas on to next round. We're going to look at this McNicholas team like we look at anybody. It's a good game. It's going to be a tough team. All right, look on to them. Here we go, week 2. Or here we go, round 2 of the postseason, I should say. It's not week 2. It's week 12. Here we go, round 2 of the postseason. Another team, another round. Let's play our football. Clinton Massey, they're not going to have any troubles against McNicholas, but if they look ahead, we could see a spoiler. We could see an upset for Clinton Massey, and we could see McNicholas potentially play spoiler in round 2 of the postseason.
Yeah, Matt, and just as you mentioned, Clinton Massey, they look ahead. That'll open the door for McNicholas. If they don't look ahead, Clinton Massey should win this football game. I will say this. The reason why I would go with Clinton Massey in this situation is because their coaching staff. They are very, very, very well coached. One of the top coaching staffs in the entire state of Ohio. They will have Clinton Massey ready to play. They will have their players not overlooking McNicholas. Clinton Massey, this is a team that was in the same exact situation 2 years ago when they went and won the state title. Clinton Massey, they're well coached. They're disciplined. They know that they have to take care of business. I don't think they're going to come out and overlook McNicholas. That's not who the Falcons are, and that's why if this was a game pick, I would have to go with the Falcons in this one. We're just saying for the record that if Clinton Massey does overlook McNicholas, this is a game that McNicholas can win. And even without McNicholas overlooking them, this is a game McNicholas still can win. Clinton Massey, you take a look at that defense. That defense through the regular season, only 90 points allowed. They were only allowing 9 points per game. And then, of course, McNicholas, they have that high-powered offense. 306 points scored through 11 games. So they're just under 30 points per game in the high 20s somewhere. Matt, you're the math whiz. I'll let you do the math on that one. But McNicholas, you have a high-powered offense and I don't want to say a tremendous defense, but a manageable defense. This is a defense that allows right around 20 points per game on the year, but they put up right around 28, 29 points per game on the year. They're going to be going up against Clinton Massie, and Clinton Massie, through the regular season, 38 points per game scored, only allowing 9 against. The numbers, the matchups, they are not in favor of McNicholas, but this is a high-powered McNicholas offense that has found their stride of late. You want to be playing your best football at this time of the year. That's exactly what the Rockets are doing.
And yeah, I mean, we talk about matchups and potential upsets. I'll tell you what, I take a look at all the matchups in Region 16. I don't think there's going to be a bad game in the entire of Region 16. And I say, I don't think there's going to be a bad game. I'll tell you what, in the second round of the postseason, I don't think there's really going to be a bad game in any region in the entire state of Ohio when it comes down to next round of the postseason. You take a look, Urbana, Shawnee, I think that's going to be a good game. Clinton Massie versus McNicholas. I mean, we've talked about it for the past few minutes. I think that's going to be an offensive shootout between both of those teams. Alta versus Indian Hill. I don't see that being a bad matchup. And then Taft versus Wyoming. I don't think that's going to be a bad game. Talk about spoilers. I don't think it's out of the realm of the possibilities that Wyoming, as the 6th seed, could potentially take down Taft.
I completely agree with that. I think the 6th seed Wyoming will prevail over Taft. I will say this is a game that I have on my watch list. 15 Urbana versus number 7 Shawnee. I'm going Shawnee to win this one. I think Shawnee will win this one, but here's the catch. 2 Central Buckeye Conference teams. We talk about how hard it is to beat an in-conference opponent come postseason time. I will say this, it does help out that these teams have not seen each other this year, so we have no idea what to expect, because we also talk about how hard it is to beat a team twice in the same season. That doesn't play a factor here, but 2 in-conference foes, 2 foes who are still familiar with each other, even though they didn't play this season. They're 2 coaching staff, 2 schemes that are familiar with each other. And again, it's a conference game in, I don't want to say the late stages of the postseason, but a chance to get to the later stages of the postseason. 15-seed Urbana, 7-3 through the regular season. Big win against 2-seed Unioto. We've been high on the Hill Climbers all season long. That is a team that if their defense steps up and their offense steps up, they can win. But Springfield Shawnee, well, through the regular season, they only allowed 81 points through the regular season, and then yesterday only allowed 7. So through 11 games, Springfield Shawnee's defense has only allowed 88 points, I beg your pardon. 88 points through 11 games on the year for Springfield Shawnee. That defense is down. That defense is going to be what makes them prevail next Friday night.
And yeah, you take a look at, and one team that in the Central Buckeye Conference, I don't think you mentioned this score, Region 15. Unfortunately for Jonathan Alder.
I was just about to get there.
I was going to say, unfortunately for Jonathan Alder, they potentially had a chance at an upset. They came close to upsetting Bishop Ready, but Bishop Ready takes the win 14-10.
14-10, the final score of that. Matt, you jumped the gun. False start. Matt, 5-yard penalty. Replay first down.
Hey.
I think I found my calling. I think I'm going to leave the radio side. I think I'm going to become an official. Time for a break. We'll be back. Division 3 coming up when we return.
At McAfee, we understand that life doesn't stop when something in your home breaks down.
It's okay.
Our customers count on us to be there, ready when they need us.
Is there anything else you need from me?
No, sir, I have all the information I need.
Great, thanks. Just lock the door on the way out.
Thank you.
Let us get your home up and running again. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
We welcome you back to Sports Now. Jackson Lightcap alongside Matthew Pennington, TKDS Sports Network, Fox Sports 980, AM Radio WONE. We also want to give our producer, Sebastian McCray, a huge shout out. He's working hard on the iHeartRadio side of things, working hard, and without him, none of this would be possible. So shout out to Sebastian. Let's move on to Region 12. We are moving on to Region 12. That is Division 3. We saw the number 1 seeded Baden Rams. We were just talking about them. They blank number 16 seed Goshen 41-0. Number 9 seed Bellbrook over number 8 seed Wilmington 48-0. A 9 versus 8 seed. Matt, usually when we talk about 9 versus 8 seeds, it's not a 48-0 score. We'll get to that here in a minute or so. Another shutout. Number 4 Butler shuts out Elida by a final score of 17-0. Number 5 Wapakoneta over number 12 New Richmond 63-21. We will see Butler face off against Wapakoneta next Friday night. That should be a very fun matchup to watch out for. Number 2, Tip City takes down number 15, Western Brown, for the second straight year in the row in the postseason. Last year in the postseason, it was in the regionals. This year in the postseason, round 1. Tippecanoe wins that one 49-20. They will play Chaminade Julienne next Friday night because the number 10 seed CJ Eagles took down number 7, Mount Healthy, 35-28. And then, last but not least, Trotwood Madison blanks Oakwood. Number 3, Trotwood Madison blanks number 14, Oakwood, 42-0. They will have a date next Friday night with the number 6 seed Salina, who they take down the number 13 seed Hillsboro, 49-7.
I'll tell you what, in Region 12, we see, you brought up Bellbrook versus Wilmington, 48-0, but I think Region 12 got a little bit more back on track when it comes to close matchups and potential what you expect to be close matchups with CJ versus Mount Healthy. 35-28 was that one. I talked about Region 16. I don't really see there being too many far off matchups and I don't really see in Region 16 there being too many one-sided affairs. I don't really think that's going to be the case too much in Region 12 as well.
Yeah, Region 12, a lot of blowouts in round 1. But looking ahead for round number 2, this has a lot of potential to be some great games. Baden against Bellbrook, 1v9. I think Baden wins this one, and I think they win this one pretty handedly. Bellbrook, that's a good team. Their offense has been inconsistent. Their defense has been inconsistent. But if Bellbrook puts together a full football game, that has potential to be close. Number 4, Butler versus number 5, Wapakoneta. That's the game I have circled in Region 12. 4 versus 5, and I'm not just doing that because of the seeding. We know what Wapakoneta can do. We've seen what they can do. They took down Baden last season. They returned a lot of their players. Wapakoneta, that's a really good football team. And guess what? They play Butler. Butler, first-year head coach, Coach Geith. And Butler, what a season they've had coming out of the Miami Valley League. The Butler Aviators, their football program has been down for quite a bit in the past. They finally get a new coach. Coach Zach Geith takes over, and he leads Butler to their first winning season in a few years, their first playoff win in a couple of years, and the Butler Aviators, you could tell that it is a new day in Vandalia, Ohio for Butler.
And yeah, it's one team that we've continued to talk about here and there, at least when it comes down to the regular season. But like you mentioned, this Butler Aviators team, though, they've got a tough matchup next round in the postseason against Wapakoneta. I don't know. I don't know about the Aviators in this one. I think Wapakoneta could play spoiler, but I keep talking about Wapakoneta potentially playing spoiler. I had in my mind, I don't know, it could be Wapakoneta over Butler, but I'm not going to lie, I completely forgot about that Aviators defense. That Aviators defense is good. Butler, I don't know. I want to go with the Aviators in this one, but I also want to go with Wapakoneta. I hope you didn't make this one a game pick because I'm probably going to be sitting here pondering about it, thinking about it for maybe the whole segment. So,
Matt, this is a Butler Aviator squad that has only allowed 118 points on the season through 11 games. That includes the 10-game regular season and round one of the postseason. 118 points allowed through 11 games. That is absolutely crazy. This Butler defense has been so tremendous, so great this season. But Wapakoneta's offense, that's what they're known for, and rightfully so. I mean, they erupted for 63 on a 12-seed New Richmond, and I understand 5 versus 12. Usually a 5-seed will come out in that one. But a 12th seed, it's not like they're the 16th seed. But they made New Richmond, who usually is a very good program and has been a very good program even this season, they made them look like a number 16 seed. You have a great defense going up against a tremendous offense. And the question is, which one's going to give? Because Butler and Wapakoneta, that has potential to being a great game and possibly a top game across the state of Ohio.
And yeah, you talk about this Wapakoneta team, you talk about that offense. The lowest amount of points this offense put up was 13 points against Defiance. They lost that game 16-13. Outside of that and their game against St. Mary's Memorial, they won that game 14-0. Outside of that, the lowest points this Wapakoneta team has put up on the season was 26-29. They lost 26-29 against, I think it's a pretty close game. Marion Local was the team they lost 26-29 against. I think that's a pretty tough team to face off against in week one of the regular season. So, I don't know. Like I said, I feel pretty confident in this Butler Aviators team, but I don't know, man. This Wapakoneta team is something else when it comes to that offense.
Yeah, that's going to be an absolutely tremendous game. Tippecanoe, how about Tip City Red Devils? Another Miami Valley League team. They were off to a very slow start to begin the season. Remember, they lost their star quarterback, Liam Peronsky, a season ago, and they were off to a very slow start. Lost week one against Bellbrook, 21-7, and then they struggled. They were down 6-0 at halftime against Fairborn in week two. They rattled off 27 unanswered points to end up winning that game, 27-6. But the Tippecanoe Red Devils, this is a team that has certainly been playing their best football over the last month, taking down Sydney back in September. Last game of September, 47-14. West Carrollton, 42-6. Stebbins, 46-0. Xenia, 41-14. Western Brown, 49-20. And now I understand that it has not been the best of opponents and the best of competition this last month for the Tippecanoe Red Devils. But, even beforehand, you look at their game against Butler, a very good Butler team. They lost by 5. They beat Troy by 1. Troy, a very good football team. This is a Tippecanoe team that ended up getting better as the season went along. I will say this, though. The Chaminade Julienne Eagles, that is the best team that they will face since they played that Butler team back in mid-September.
And yeah, you take a look at the Red Devils' schedule so far this season. Lost week one to Bellbrook. 21-7 was the final score of that game. Then Fairborn, you mentioned that game. They were struggling early against the Skyhawks. They won that game 27-6. But since then, it's slowly been better and better for the Red Devils. They obviously played a very close game against Troy. You talk about Troy. That's not a team you can look past at all. They won that game 13-12, I should say, not 12-11. It was 13-12, the final score of that one. Then they lost on the road to Butler. Jackson, you and I were at that game. Butler came away victorious, 24-19. But since then, this Red Devils team has not looked bad, and they have not looked past that loss against Butler. It seems like that loss has fueled this Red Devils team to a dominant slate of games in the second half of the regular season and even in the postseason. The lowest amount of points they've scored since that loss to Butler, 41 points against Xenia. Outside of that, 41, 42 points, and then 42 points against West Carrollton, 47 points, 46 points, 49 points. This Red Devils team, since that loss to Butler, it seems like that was the switch to turn this team around. It's not that they weren't playing good before then, but since then, it has been consistent dominance.
And Matt, I will also say this before we move into Region 11. We have a few teams we want to talk about in Region 11. CJ, they love running the football. They run the triple option. They run it pretty effectively. 3 great running backs for the Chaminade Julienne Eagles. What is the strength of that Tippecanoe defense? Stopping the run. This is a Tippecanoe defense that in 371 attempts through the 11 games that they've played this season, they've only allowed giving up 2.8 yards per carry. They're only allowing 96.1 yards per game on the ground. So you have CJ strength in running the football. You have Tippecanoe strength in stopping the run. That front seven for the Tippecanoe Red Devils, very strong. Tippecanoe wins that football game because I think that they're going to make CJ one-dimensional.
And yeah, CJ on the season, they've been a very, very good running attack team, and one team that you talk about Tippecanoe, that's who they have next on the slate, but CJ did pretty good running the football against a really good Baden rushing defense. Not saying that it's going to be the exact case between Tip and Baden when it comes to what the running defense is going to be like between Tip and Baden. Tippecanoe's got a little bit better of a running defense than Baden does, but CJ, this Eagles team, if they can get a little bit more of passing involved in the offense, I wouldn't say for CJ. I think for CJ, you got to stick with the run game. That's what you've been good at all season long. But you got to get a few passing plays involved there. It doesn't have to be 70-30 running to passing on the game, but you've got to occasionally here or there pull out the trick play, throw the football. It doesn't have to be down the field, but if you're CJ, you cannot be one-dimensional against Tip.
Let's move on to Region 11, Division 3. We have 2 games we want to talk about. London takes down Beechcroft 57-14. Bell Fountain takes down John Glenn 49-7. We will see a rematch between London and Bell Fountain coming up in round 2 of the OHSAA postseason. Matt, I know you're pretty wide-eyed over there. What a tremendous game and what a tremendous treat we will get in round 2. 2 Central Buckeye Conference teams going at it head-to-head once again. We saw London take the division and take the Kent Trail division, take the Central Buckeye Conference in general. Bell Fountain right behind them, though, as well. We say it'll also be a rematch from a game that we saw way back on Friday, September 22nd. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that was week 6.
Yeah, taking a look at that, it was week 6 between both of these two teams, and we keep talking about time in and time out. I mean, it keeps coming up pretty much every single season, and it feels like it's almost every single week in the postseason. We're probably going to potentially see a matchup between two teams that have already played each other on the season. London took down Bell Fountain 36-6 the first time these two teams faced off against each other, and that was a road game for the Red Raiders of London. So not saying that the Chieftains don't have a chance to come away on top in this one, but as a 9-2 team, that is a very, very tough second-round matchup for Bell Fountain.
It is time for a break. When we return, we will talk about Division 2, Region 8. That's all coming up next here on Sports Now on the TKDS Sports Network and Fox Sports 980 AM Radio WONE.
It's easy to take the air in your home for granted. But it's not just about being hot or cold. It's about having clean air. For some of us, this is critical. At McAfee, we'll provide you with long-term solutions to improve the air you breathe.
Do you need your inhaler, bud? Oh, I'm good, thanks.
Breathe easy. Choose McAfee. It's easy to take the air in your home for granted. But it's not just about being hot or cold. It's about having clean air. For some of us, this is critical. At McAfee, we'll provide you with long-term solutions to improve the air you breathe.
Do you need your inhaler, bud? Oh, I'm good, thanks.
Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
Jackson Lightcap, Matthew Pennington, Fox Sports 980 AM Radio WONE, powered by the TKDS Sports Network. We're moving on to Region 8. That is Division 2. We are flying through this show. Not a whole lot of scores that we need to talk about, especially in times past. Region 8, we saw the number 1 seeded Anderson Raptors. They take down the number 16 seed Turpin 43-7. Number 9 seed Kings takes down the number 8 seed Loveland 38-17. They will have a date next Friday night, an ECC matchup. The GWOC team that was Division 1 to drop to Division 2, they were the number 4 seed for Division 2. They take down number 13 seed Fairborn 35-0. And number 5 seed Harrison destroys number 12 seed Sydney by a score of 51-6. Where you'll see 4 versus 5. Northmont against Harrison next Friday night. Number 2 seed Troy takes care of number 15 seed Stebbins 26-7. And number 7 seed Lima Senior takes care of number 10 seed Xenia by a score of 42-32. Troy and Lima Senior, they will meet in round 2 of the OHSA postseason. And this could possibly be the game across the state of Ohio. Number 3, Withrow, that tremendous offense. They take down Edgewood, who were the 14 seed, 49-0. Withrow will be facing off against Winton Woods, the 6 seed, who took down LaSalle, who was the 13 seed, 12-6. Matt, Withrow, Winton Woods, that game has potential to be the game across the state of Ohio. You have Winton Woods' tremendous defense, a little bit of a struggling offense, but a tremendous defense, and you have Withrow, who has an explosive offense, an explosive defense. If Winton Woods, whoever wins this game between Winton Woods and Withrow, both those teams have hopes at a regional championship. Both those teams have hopes of making it to the state Final Four. And even though Winton Woods is the 6th seed and Withrow has the 3 seed, I think Division 2, Region 8, is the most competitive region we will see here in the Southwest region of Ohio. Out of any of the teams remaining, there are a handful of teams that I think can have a really good shot of representing the Southwest region when it comes to the state Final Four.
I'll tell you what, taking a look at Region 8, I'm not saying that, and the reason I bring up these 2 teams is because they're the only 2 teams that I could potentially see not being a well fit for Region 8 to represent the region. I'm not saying that Harrison isn't a good team or Lima Senior isn't a good team, but outside of Lima Senior and Harrison, I feel like Anderson, Kings, Northmont, Troy, Withrow, Winton Woods could all represent Region 8. And like I said, Harrison, they might prove me wrong and take down Northmont, and if they do, they are a team that can also be in that conversation. And the same can be said for Lima Senior against Troy next week. But when it comes down to the competition level, I mean, Anderson Kings, as you mentioned, ECC matchup, it's very possible we could see Kings potentially play spoiler in that one. We saw what they did in their ECC matchup last night, taking down Loveland, 38-17. Dominant win for Kings last night. The same could be said for the Raptors of Anderson. A dominant win against the Turpin Spartans. 43-7 was the final score of that game. Northmont, you talk about the competitiveness. That was a huge wrench thrown into Region 8 from last year to this year. Northmont, former Division I school, now Division II. That could place a wrench into the mix and throw a wrench into the mix with Northmont being a potential Region 8 representative. Troy, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to see this Trojans team be the team representing Region 8. And like you said, Withrow, Winton Woods, I mean, that is one of the best defenses, I would say, in the southwest area of Ohio, facing off against one of the best offenses in the southwest area of Ohio. So that is going to be a huge, huge battle in Region 8 next week.
Yeah, Withrow, Winton Woods, that's the game that I have circled on my calendar. That is going to be an absolutely tremendous game. And Matt, I completely agree with you. When it comes to Anderson, Kings, Northmont, Troy, Withrow, Winton Woods, I think all 5 of those teams, or I beg your pardon, all 6 of those teams have a chance of representing the Southwest region. And the reason why I'm not going to throw Harrison or Lima Senior in that mix is because of strength of schedule. I put Northmont in that because they've come out of a very competitive GWAC conference. Every single school in the GWAC, they're all Division I. So Northmont all season long it seems like they've been playing up a division, and they've held their own. A very good season for the Northmont Thunderbolts. And then, of course, Anderson, the explosive offense. The one catch for Anderson, though, is will that defense be consistent through the postseason? Kings, they're 5-5. I put them in that mix because the experience, what they were able to do last season heading to the state Final Four. That's a coaching staff. That's a team that knows what it takes and knows how to play playoff football in the state of Ohio in the Southwest region. Because of their experience, that is a team that just already has a boost because they know what they need to do, whereas Anderson, they played late, but they never made it to the state Final Four last season. You have Troy, they've gone late in the postseason. They've never made it to a state Final Four. Northmont the same way. So you have those situations. Troy, I choose them. That defense is absolutely incredible. Withrow, playmakers offensively and defensively. The one thing that could hurt Withrow is their strength of schedule, not necessarily outside of the conference, but within the Cincinnati Metro Athletic Conference. And then Winton Woods, that defense. That defense is absolutely stout for the Winton Woods Warriors. And Lima Senior Harrison, I'm not going to say that they don't have a chance, but their strength of schedule is going to play a bit of a factor. It's going to be a very, very, very fun next couple of weeks for Region 8, because Region 8, I said it once, I'll say it before, I'll say it again. Listen, Region 8 is the most competitive region we will talk about in Southwest Ohio because we have no idea and really no lead on who is going to take Region 8. There are 6 quality teams, and I would even go out and say every single team within Region 8 is a quality team to be able to represent the Southwest region. And Matt, that leads me into my next question. From Region 8, who's your team to represent later on and why?
I hate you for asking this question. I can't.
I'll give my answer too.
I mean, I don't think I can pick a team. To be completely honest with you, I hate you for asking that question, man. The one thing I wanted to talk about before you threw that question at me is one property that I hate using for comparing teams and comparing matchups is the transitive property. But if you want to use that property to compare a matchup and compare what could be the greatest matchup for round 2 of the postseason, Withrow and Winton Woods both played Trotwood. Both Winton Woods and Withrow won their games against Trotwood 21-7. the exact same score. Winton Woods took down Trotwood in week 1, 21-7. Withrow took down Trotwood in week 5, 21-7. The reason I say I hate the transitive property and using two teams that have played against the same school and played similarly against the same school is because it's different matchups against both teams. Winton Woods, that team matches up differently against Trotwood. Withrow matches up differently against Trotwood as well. But if you want to use that property, you are going to want to go to this Withrow versus Winton Woods game next week. And going back to the question that you brought up, like I said, I hate you for
I can go
asking this
first
question.
if you want me to.
You go. You probably have, like you said,
I can go first if you want me to. I have my team picked out.
I
stand by this. Every single team remaining in Region 8 has a good argument and a good chance to make it to the state Final Four and be regional champs. This is going to be the most common answer, but I am going the 1 seed, and I'm going with the Anderson Raptors, and I'm not going with them because the 1 seed, they could be the 8 seed or the 9 seed still remaining in this bracket, and I would still go with them. They're coming out of a very tough Eastern Cincinnati Conference, and look at that offense. 44 points week 1, 48 in week 2, 44 in week 3, 35 in week 4, 51 in week 5. They only put up 20, but against a very good Winton Woods defense in week 6. Then 46, 50, 31, 41, 43. We have seen one game this season from the Anderson Raptors where they scored below 30 points, and that was to one of the best defenses in the state of Ohio, and they still won. Anderson, that defense, it's been inconsistent at points this season, but it's done the job just enough. Anderson, that's a defense that through 11 games has allowed 172 points on the season, which is a little higher than some of the great defenses we've been talking about. But when you have a defense, or an offense, I beg your pardon, who has put up 453 points through 11 games, defense wins championships, but offense does play a factor. I think the defense will step up down the stretch. Anderson, that's a tremendous offense. That is probably the most explosive offense here in the Southwest region through any of the 7 divisions we've talked about. Maybe that's a hot take. I'm going to still go out and say that. That offense is very, very, very explosive. I love what the Anderson Raptors bring to the table. Not to mention, Matt, remember last year, they made it to the regional finals. They were 1 game away from punching their ticket to the state Final Four, where then Kings ended up taking them down in the Elite 8 to take their place in the Final Four. That's a coaching staff, and the players that were on that team last season that are returning, they are upset about that. They want to get back to that same point. They're playing with the chip on their shoulder. They got the offense, they got the defense, they got the coaches to go with it. Again, any team remaining in Region 8, out of all the 8 teams remaining in Region 8, there are all of them have a great case and a great argument to be able to make it and to be your pick heading into the Final Four. But right now, I got to go with Anderson. They're playing the best football out of any of those 8 teams.
I feel like I've got to agree with you on that one after looking at pretty much every single team's schedule so far this year. And one team that I want to give a little bit of props to that I it's not that I threw shade at them, but this Harrison Wildcats team, man, they have played a tough schedule. They played East Central out of Indiana, one of the best teams in the entire state of Indiana. They did lose that game 42-7, but East Central, undefeated on the season, and East Central out of Indiana has played teams such as Moeller, such as Lawrenceburg. They've played a very tough schedule so far this year, so I wouldn't say it was throwing too much shade at Harrison, but this Wildcats team they also played Clinton Massey and lost that game by 7. This Harrison Wildcats team very well could be the team that represents this region. They also played Bishop Watterson, who is a very tough team. They lost that game 48-13, but Harrison has played a very tough schedule so far this year. They beat Indian Hill, who went 9-2 on the year. So they beat Mount Healthy, who went 8-3. So Harrison has played a tough schedule so far this year, but when it comes down to overall consistency on the season, I think Anderson has got to be one of those teams that you got to keep an eye out for coming out of this region. Because you take a look at their one loss on the season, it's against the number 1 seed in Region 4. That's Milford. They lost that game 56-35, and if you've seen what Milford's been able to do so far this year, barring that game against Winton Woods, who's got one of the best defenses in the entire state of Ohio, I'll stick by that all season long until Winton Woods gets potentially knocked out of the postseason. Heck, Winton Woods might even win state. You never know with how good Region 8 has been and how good Region 8 is this year. But I think I got to go with the Anderson Raptors consistency. Anderson has looked consistent all season long. I talked about that loss to Milford. They also played Winton Woods, won that game 20-13. I feel confident in the consistency of this Anderson Raptors team. And if there's a team I have to pick inside of this region that I expect to potentially be the team to represent Region 8, I feel like it's Anderson Raptors. I feel like it's Anderson's year this year.
I completely agree with you. Time for a break. Division 1 talk coming up when we return on the TKDS Sports Network, Fox Sports 980, AM Radio, WONE.
Come on, guys, let's call Daddy. Hi, Daddy.
Hi!
How you doing?
So the furnace is on its last leg, babe. And I just don't know what to do.
I wish I could be there to help.
Being away is always difficult, but it doesn't mean you can't make decisions together. You can count on us to keep your family comfortable.
Hey, buddy, how's it going?
When are you coming home?
It's gonna be soon. Faster than you know it, I'll be home.
Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
Come on, guys, let's call Daddy. Hi, Daddy.
Hi!
How you doing?
So the furnace is on its last leg, babe. And I just don't know what to do.
I wish I could be there to help.
Being away is always difficult, but it doesn't mean you can't make decisions together. You can count on us to keep your family comfortable.
Hey, buddy, how's it going?
When are you coming home?
It's gonna be soon. Faster than you know it, I'll be home.
Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
We welcome you back here as we close out hour number 2. Well, folks, just another reminder, for those of you listening on Fox Sports 980, AM Radio, WONE on radio, this show will close out at 10. The final hour of this 3-hour show is only an exclusive on the TKDS Sports Network. You can watch that final hour on any of your social media pages, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube as well. You can watch all of that on the TKDS Sports Network, any social media page at TKDS Sports. In that final hour, Matt and I, we will talk about some Cincinnati schools. So we will go through, we will talk about Region 4 and what to expect in Region 4. We will make some predictions for some possible upsets next week in Week 12. And then we will make our Week 12 game picks. That's all coming up in the third and final hour, exclusive and only found on the TKDS Sports Network and any other social media pages. Let's skip Region 4. We'll talk about that because that's more Cincinnati side of things. We'll talk about that here, the first segment of hour number 3. Let's move into Region number 2. Region number 2, we saw the number 1 seed, Olentangy. They take down Dublin Jerome, who were the 16 seed, by a final score of 44-13, I beg your pardon. Number 9, Miamisburg pulls the upset against number 8, Delaware Hayes, 34-14. Number 4, Centerville hangs on tight against Olentangy Orange, 23-6. And number 12, Springfield takes down number 5, Wayne. And the Warriors season will come to a close 3 years in a row. First round exits for the Warriors, 38-14, the final score in that one. We'll see a GWalk rematch between Centerville and Springfield coming up next Friday night. Number 2, Olentangy Berlin takes down number 15, Marysville, blanks them 20-0. Number 10, Perrysburg handles Toledo Whitmer. It was the 17, 20-14. We'll see Perrysburg square off against Olentangy Berlin. And number 14, Olentangy Liberty handles number 3, Findlay, 36-35. Very close one there. A huge upset, 14-3. And number 60, Dublin Kaufman takes down the number 11, Kettering Fairmont Firebirds by a final score of 14-7. Kaufman and Liberty will square off in Week 12.
And yeah, there were a lot of, at least when it comes down to the later games that we mentioned in Region 2, there was a lot of blowouts, but there was also a lot of very close games. I mean, you take a look at Olentangy Berlin versus Marysville. Obviously, not a super close game, but 20-0 was the final score of that one. Perrysburg over Whitmer, upset alert in that one. 20-14 was the final score of that game. Another upset, Olentangy Liberty, like you mentioned, 14 seed upsetting the 3 seed, 36-35. And then Dublin Kaufman, close game. Fairmont clawing their way back in the later stages of that one. Dublin Kaufman was up 14-0 at the half. Fairmont clawed their way back, but it was just too tall of a hill to climb. They lost to Dublin Kaufman 14-7. But how about Springfield? We've been talking about Springfield struggling for a majority of the season, and that's been the case for the Wildcats. The offense has had struggles, but they put up 38 points against a really good Wayne defense, and now they've got a matchup against Centerville in the next round. Springfield, they're looking like they're getting ready to, I wouldn't say play spoiler against Centerville, but I think Springfield doesn't like the fact that a lot of people have been putting them down and putting them off and not really talking too much about this Wildcats team, because they came out and they destroyed the Warriors.
And Matt, the Springfield Wildcats this season, what has been their biggest issue? Injuries. Injuries have plagued them. There was a time where Springfield was on their 5th string quarterback at a point this season because of injuries. Guess what, Matt? The Wildcats, they're getting healthy at the right time. This is a Wildcats team to me that I don't think will be going back to the state championship. They were in it the last 2 years. I don't think that they have the pieces, and with how this season has gone with the injuries, that's hurt some of the development, especially junior quarterback Brent Upshaw. I think that hurts him, and I think that plagues him later on in the postseason. This is a Wildcats team, though, that can make a run. We have not seen an offensive explosion all season long for the Springfield Wildcats until last week's game against the Wayne Warriors. And guess what? They're healthy again. Brent Upshaw, 7 for 11, 101 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Take a look at the rushing numbers. Javen Norman, 19 attempts, 81 yards. And then DeAndre Long, 18 attempts, 91 yards. The defense really, really stepped up. Wayne turned over the football 2 times. Fumble recovery by Kyron Dolby, and then an interception by Javen Martin. And this is a Wildcats team that, although the numbers aren't going to absolutely blow you away, this is a Wildcats team that did just enough. They won the field position battle. They won the time of possession. And they did just enough to be able to pull away the win. I mean, Tyrell Lewis, 3 for 16 yesterday. And Tyrell Lewis is one of the best quarterbacks that we see in the area. 3 for 16 yesterday, the junior quarterback win. This is a Springfield team that, yes, they struggled during the regular season. But guess what? They were banged up. They were hurt. Now they're getting healthy. This is a Springfield team, Matt. I'm going to go out and say this. I think that they could take down Centerville next week. I think that we could see a 12-4 next week at Centerville Stadium.
I would see that being the case if Centerville's rush defense decides to take the day off against Springfield, because that's one thing we've seen from this Wildcats team in years past. They have been a run team on first down and then torture defense second and third down throwing the football. That's what Springfield has really been capable of when they had Tayshawn Smoot, when they had Bryce Schoenemeyer. They were a more air raid team. Not a complete air offense only, but I would say it was probably, 70-30 split passing to rushing, somewhere around those lines, give or take 5% to make it a 65-35 offense, or 75-25 on some given nights where the run game couldn't
Also depends on the situation of the game as well.
I was going to say when some days the offensive running attack couldn't get anything going, they went more 75-25, or when the run game was good, they went 65-35, throwing the football against running it. But when it comes to this Springfield team, they've been running the football a lot more on the offensive side. I mean, take a look at last night. You talk about Upshaw, 7 for 11 throwing the football, 101 yards, 2 touchdowns. They ran the football 53 times yesterday. When is the last time you can say, outside of this year, obviously, when is the last time you can say Springfield ran the ball 53 of their 66 total offensive snaps during a football game? Granted, the running attack was good. They went for 217, 4.1 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns on the ground. But when was the last time you can say Springfield dominated and mainly ran the football during their game? It's been a while.
It's been a long time.
It's been a while.
And you know, Matt, I will say this. You go back to the Centerville-Springfield game. This game was played at Springfield. This was back in Week 7. And we saw Centerville win that one 24-16. It was a close game. Springfield was winning that game for quite a while. Here's the thing that it's going to come down to. And, Matt, it's the most cliche answer. We mention this almost every single game we talk about. I'm going to mention it again. Can you guess what it is?
I don't know if it's the turnover margin or if it's the turnover margin.
Turnovers, 100%. You look back at that game on October 6th. Springfield turned over the football 5 times. Centerville turned over the football 4 times. This game is going to come down to whoever wins the turnover battle. And especially with how they played in Week 7 with both teams turning over the ball 4 or more times, this game is going to come down to the turnover battle. You have a great Centerville defense, a great Springfield defense. Whoever comes away with more turnovers is going to be the one to win this game. This is a game Springfield can win. Centerville's offense, we've seen them struggle at times this season, but we've also seen Springfield's offense struggle at times this season. I'm expecting for a defensive barn burner, and it's going to be a good one no matter what happens.
And yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, or the hammer right on the head of the nail when you said that the turnover margin is going to determine this game. I think it's more of who protects the football is going to win. Whoever protects the football and keeps it in the hands of their offense the most and plays the most ball security on their side is going to come away on top. Whether it's Centerville or Springfield, whoever protects the football more is going to win this game.
Absolutely. And with that being said, that'll take us to the end of our first 2 hours on the show. So for those of you listening on Fox Sports 980 AM Radio WONE, you guys will shift back to the regular pre-programmed by Fox Sports Radio. But if you want the 3rd hour of this show, come join us on the TKDS Sports Network and any of the TKDS Sports Network social media pages at TKDS Sports, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and also on our app. Alongside Matthew Pennington, our producer back at base, Sebastian McCrae, I'm Jackson Lightcap signing off, and we will see you in hour number 3 on any of the social media pages.
At McAfee, we understand that life doesn't stop when something in your home breaks down. Our customers count on us to be there, ready when they need us.
Is there anything else you need from me?
No, sir. I have all the information I need.
Great, thanks. Just lock the door on the way out.
Thank you.
Let us get your home up and running again. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee. At McAfee, we understand that life doesn't stop when something in your home breaks down. Our customers count on us to be there, ready when they need us.
Is there anything else you need from me?
No, sir. I have all the information I need.
Great, thanks. Just lock the door on the way out.
Thank you.
Let us get your home up and running again. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
Hour number 3 of this 3-hour show. Jackson Lightcap alongside Matthew Pennington. And we have a new producer for the final hour. It's Kevin Fowler on the TKDS Sports Network as we welcome you exclusively to the TKDS Sports Network. We just went through all the divisions, but there's still one more region we need to talk about. That's Region 4. Region 4, some of your Cincinnati schools. We saw number 1, Milford and the Eagles take down the Fairfield Indians 41-15. That game only 7-0 at the intermission. So Milford, a big second half to win it. Number 9, Mason upsets number 8, Lebanon. That defense, stout. That was a game you and I were at last night, Matt. Final score in that one, 17-0 in favor of the Comets. Number 4 seed St. Xavier takes down number 13 seed Springboro, 35-13. How about this? 2 punt returns for a touchdown in that game for the St. X Bombers. Number 5, Moeller and the Crusaders take down West Claremont, the number 12 seed, 49-13. We will have a GCL South matchup. St. Xavier, Moeller, coming up next week. Number 2, Princeton handles number 15, Middletown, 41-15. And number 7, Hamilton ends Sycamore season. The number 10 seed, they beat them 13-10. We'll see a GMC rematch between Princeton and Hamilton in Week 12. And this game, we mentioned there's a lot of games across the state of Ohio that could be in the running for a top game across the state of Ohio. This one's certainly it as well. Number 3, Lacona West down. Number 14, Blanksome, Western Hills, 69-0. Elder, the number 6 seed, takes down Oak Hills, 28-14. And we will see Lakota West square off against Elder next week at Lakota West High School.
I'll tell you what, we talked about, at least I did in a couple different regions that we were talking about. I'm pretty certain that all of these matchups are going to be phenomenal in Region 4. You've got Milford versus Mason. You've got Milford, one of the top offenses in the southwest area of Ohio, facing off one of the best defenses in the entire southwest area in Ohio with Mason. Then you've got, obviously, if you get a GCL South matchup in the postseason, you are going to be blessed with an amazing football game. St. X at home against Moeller. That should be a phenomenal round 2 matchup. Princeton-Hamilton, it's a GMC matchup. That should be a great matchup between the Vikings and the Big Blue. They've already faced off against each other once this season. Princeton, the one who came out victorious in that one. And then you've got the Firebirds of Lakota West facing off at home. So it helps because I'd rather not go play at the Pit if I were Lakota West. But you face off against the Elder Panthers. Speaking of Elder, not too surprising seeing GCL South win, GCL South win, GCL South win, all inside of Region 4. All 3 of the teams inside of the GCL South making most of the first round of the postseason and moving on to the second round. The only GCL South team to not move on in the first round was LaSalle, and they faced off against Winton Woods. And if you know how good that defense is, not too surprised the Lancers got held to 6 in that one, but still, the competition level in the GCL South, not too surprising seeing all of these teams handle business pretty easily last night. The big question is going to be who's going to handle business better. Is it going to be St. X or Moeller? Which GCL South team is going to come out of that one? And will Elder play spoiler to Lakota West on the road?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, going back to that Princeton-Hamilton game, Matt, what are the things that we mention a lot on this show? It's hard to beat an opponent 2 times in the same year, and it's hard to beat a conference opponent in the postseason. They met way back in week number 5. Princeton won that football game at home 22-16. It was a very, very, very close game, and you look at the box score for that. Princeton only 11 first downs, only 208 yards of total offense, but Hamilton only 7 first downs, only 148 or 184 yards of total offense. Princeton, Hamilton, this upcoming matchup, I think is going to be good. It's an in-conference game. Not only is it an in-conference game, but Princeton beat Hamilton. It's hard to beat an opponent 2 times in the same season. I think Hamilton might be able to pull this one out. Princeton, though, that's a good team. It's just going to be a great game. You can go either way with this one.
And not just did Hamilton stay close in that game, you take a look at the box score. Princeton scored with 12 seconds to go in the game. If that says anything about what this matchup is going to be here in the second round of the postseason, Princeton versus Hamilton should be a phenomenal game. Like you mentioned, it's tough to beat the same team twice in the same year, especially when it is an in-conference matchup. The Big Blue, it's not to say it's guaranteed that Hamilton comes away on top in this one, but you got to have your popcorn ready for this one between Princeton and Hamilton.
Matt, I'm going to go out and say this. Look at the box score way back on Friday, September 15th. Guess what stat stands out? 2 turnovers for Hamilton, none for Princeton. Hamilton lost by 6. That's going to play a factor. That is going to play a factor. If Hamilton could play a clean football game, they win this game against Princeton. But that's easier said than done going up against a very good Vikings defense.
You know what stat stands out to me?
Let me guess.
It's you probably won't guess it, but I'm going to let you try to guess it.
Give me a second. Give me a second. Give me a second. I'm going to go penalties.
Nope.
No?
Average rushing yards per carry for both teams. 1.5 yards per carry for Hamilton, or 1.4 for Hamilton, 1.5 for Princeton.
I said penalties because we had 10 for 69 against Hamilton, 12 for 94 against Princeton. These are teams that don't like each other. Frankly, these are 2 teams that do not like each other. And they're 2 very disciplined teams outside of this game. Look for a heated matchup. It's going to be a fun one. Turnovers will play a factor. It's a game pick, so we got to make a game pick on this one later on.
And yeah, the other thing that is, at least I would hope, if you try to get a similar game like we saw earlier on in the season, Hamilton went 3 for 13 on third down, and Princeton went 2 for 14. So if that says anything about this game, this should be a defensive brawl between the Big Blue and the Vikings this week.
Matt, another game I want to talk about here in Region 4. I want to take a look at Milford Eagles versus the Mason Comets. Matt, you and I were able to see that Mason's Comets defense in person yesterday, and that defense is very, 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 very good. I could say very all the way up until the end of the show, and it still would not do them justice. Mason Comets, they are stout on defense. That is one of the best defenses in the area. I put them up there. We talk about Winton Woods caliber defense and how great they've been. It's the same situation for the Mason Comets. Milford, an explosive offense. Mason, an explosive defense. What's going to give in this one? Milford Mason, that's got potential to be a tremendous game. And you and I were talking last night after the broadcast, what wins championships? Defense. I think Mason could take down Milford next week.
I would agree with you if Milford's offensive line does not protect their quarterback. If Milford's offensive line does nothing to protect the quarterback, Mason's going to have their way with Milford's offense, and it's going to be a similar scoreline that we saw Mason versus Lebanon last night. But if Milford's offensive line holds strong, which they did not do against Winton Woods, if Milford's offensive line cannot protect their quarterback, Mason is going to win this game by 2 to 3 possessions. There's no doubt in my mind about that, with how good this Comets defense is. If they can't get pressure on the quarterback, though, Milford's offense is going to go to work like we've seen Milford's offense do for a majority of this season. It's all going to come down to that battle in the trenches between Mason and Milford. If Mason's defensive line prevails, Mason's going to come away with another upset. If Milford's offensive line prevails, Mason's defense is going to have a long, long night ahead of them.
Yeah, I mean, Milford, that offensive line, they struggled in that first quarter against Winton Woods. Matt, a couple weeks ago, you went out and said on this show, Winton Woods, that defensive line is the best defensive line that you've ever seen at the high school level. Matt, I'd probably have to agree with you. Mason, though, they're up there. That Mason defensive line, what they did to Lebanon last night was insane. I mean, they committed war crimes against the Lebanon offensive line. Mason, the defensive line, they're going to make you pay. If you're able to beat the defensive line, good luck beating that secondary. And I mean, good luck beating that secondary. We saw Charlie Raymond III come up with 3 interceptions alone in yesterday's game. Milford, that offensive line, 5 sacks allowed in that first quarter against Winton Woods. They fixed it. They only allowed two sacks the rest of the game. A lot of that, I don't necessarily think went to, I think a little bit went into the players, but a lot of that went into coaching. I think the coaches went over and tried to change up their blocking scheme. We saw them starting to keep running backs in. We saw them starting to keep more tight ends in. Milford's going to have to do the same if they want to beat Mason. Mason, that's a team that I will say this, they have the ultimate amount of trust in that secondary. They zero blitz quite a bit, meaning they bring everyone. The front 4, the linebackers, the safeties, they bring everyone. Especially if Milford were to line up 5 wide, expect Mason to bring a zero blitz. Expect Mason to bring the house. And then because Mason, that defense, they have trust to hold that man coverage downfield enough time for them to get to the quarterback. That's a very aggressive defense, a very great defense. Milford's going to have struggles early on in this one.
And yeah, Jackson, you alluded to what I was just about to talk about and bring up. That defense, there's so much trust and ability in that defense when you go from cover 1 to cover 2. You have 1 to 2 high safeties playing coverage downfield, and that's pretty much what Mason's defense started off with when it came to the formation on the defensive side. And then, like you mentioned, they went from that to zero blitz. That goes to show how much confidence and how much trust you have in your defense to go from, all right, we're going to play back, not allow Lebanon to do anything, throwing the football down the field, to then realizing that, hey, our defense is getting pressure. Let's go for more. Our secondary is covering well enough. Let's send the house. And that's what Mason's defense started to do in the later stages of the game. And that's why Lebanon struggled so much, because Lebanon was a good running team. And when the run game wasn't really able to get anything going, Mason's defense and their defensive coordinator realized they can't get anything when we're rushing 4. Let's send the house. Let's stop this running attack and not allow Lebanon to breathe at all. And that's what we saw Mason do against Lebanon last night. And that's why the Warriors struggled, is because that defense for Mason, the defensive coordinator had so much trust in that defense to go from a cover 1 to a cover 1 and cover 2 style defense to sending everybody after the quarterback.
And you know, Matt, that's one thing I admire about that defensive coordinator and the coaching staff and the system for the Mason Comets, is because usually, most times when you have teams and defenses getting pressure off of just sending 3 or 4 guys, what do? You just drop the rest back in coverage and you let them go to work, because chances are if they're having a good day, they're going to get to the quarterback, and then it's harder to find open lanes and throw the football. Mason, on the other hand, they're aggressive. They're like, okay, our front 4 is getting pressure. Instead of dropping the rest back in coverage to make it harder for them to throw the football downfield, hey, let's just send everyone. Let's get these loss of yards. That's exactly what Mason does. That's not what a typical football-style team does. That's not a typical defense. If you're getting pressure from your front 4, you usually drop the rest and the rest of the 7 back in coverage. Nope. Mason, they got pressure with the front 4. They said, more. They brought 5. More. They brought 6. More. They brought 7, until they were bringing 8 rushers on the same play, only leaving 3 in coverage. We saw that a couple times yesterday. This Mason defense, very aggressive. The coaching style, very aggressive. That's one thing I admire about the Comets.
And yeah, I completely agree with you. When you have that level of confidence in your team and you have that level of confidence in your defense, not only does that prove to other teams that, okay, this defense is scary good, but that also plays and bodes so well for the players on that defense too. Because if your coach has confidence in your defense and you as a player to do whatever you want on the defensive side, whether it be a cornerback playing coverage or whether it be a linebacker playing the blitz on that play. If the player knows that his coach has so much confidence in him that, hey, to heck with what normal coaching is going to do, we're going to do what we want to do, and you guys are going to be able to do whatever you want on the defensive side, whether it's rushing the quarterback or whether it's dropping back in coverage. When your coach has that much confidence in you as a player and you as a defense, that's only going to build the players' confidence more to play play a lot better for his coach.
Matt, I will say this. Do you remember that one SpongeBob episode where SpongeBob and Patrick are just trying to get more lights for the pineapple? And Patrick's running out going, more lights, SpongeBob, more lights. That's Mason's defensive coordinator, but instead of lights, it's more sacks, Mason, more sacks. Time for a break. We'll be back on the TKDS Sports Network.
At McAfee, we understand that life doesn't stop when something in your home breaks down. Our customers count on us to be there, ready when they need us.
Is there anything else you need from me?
No, sir. I have all the information I need.
Great, thanks. Just lock the door on the way out.
Thank you.
Let us get your home up and running again. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
Come on, guys, let's call Daddy. Hi, Daddy.
Hi!
How you doing?
So the furnace is on its last leg, babe. And I just don't know what to do.
I wish I could be there to help.
Being away is always difficult, but it doesn't mean you can't make decisions together. You can count on us to keep your family comfortable.
Hey, buddy, how's it going?
When are you coming home?
It's gonna be soon. Faster than you know it, I'll be home.
Breathe easy. Choose McAfee. At McAfee, we understand that life doesn't stop when something in your home breaks down. Our customers count on us to be there, ready when they need us.
Is there anything else you need from me?
No, sir. I have all the information I need.
Great, thanks. Just lock the door on the way out.
Thank you.
Let us get your home up and running again. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee. At McAfee, we understand that life doesn't stop when something in your home breaks down. Our customers count on us to be there, ready when they need us.
Is there anything else you need from me?
No, sir. I have all the information I need.
Great, thanks. Just lock the door on the way out.
Thank you.
Let us get your home up and running again. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
Well, we've gone through all the regions we have to talk about, so I guess we just end the show early. No, we don't do that. We have plenty to talk about here on our Saturday morning, Friday night recap show. Jackson Lycap, Matthew Pennington. Matt, let's take a look at some future upsets that we want to predict ahead of week number 12.
I'm trying to scroll up and down using my pen for my laptop, and it's wanting to highlight everything, so I'm going to put that away.
Upsets, Matt, you want to start us off?
Upset that I could see happening, Region 28. I could see St. Henry, and obviously this isn't the biggest upset in the world because it's a 14 seed versus an 11 seed, but I don't think it's completely out of the realm of possibilities that we see St. Henry as a 14 seed move on and take down Fort Loramie, who's the 11 seed. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it's MAC versus Independent for football, but Shelby County Conference for pretty much most other sports, but I think St. Henry could pull off an upset in the second round of the postseason.
Matt, I'm going to stick with Region 28. I'm going to go with New Bremen over Minster. I think New Bremen and the Cardinals, that's a good MAC conference. They played a tough schedule. Minster, though, that's out of a MAC conference, too. The question is, which one's going to give? We talked about it's tough to beat a team 2 times in the same season. I think New Bremen is able to pull this one out.
I would agree if New Bremen had a little bit better of a season and a little bit better of a showing against Minster earlier on in the year.
These are upsets that we just think could happen. I don't. Let's get this straight, because that's one of our game picks. In our game picks, I very well may go Minster. So I don't want it to seem like I'm backtracking or we're backtracking. These are just upsets we think could happen, not necessarily think that are going to happen.
Tell you an upset.
Let's kind of clarify that there too, because our game pick segment and this segment may be a little bit, well, you said New Bremen earlier. These are upsets that could happen, not that we may see happening, not necessarily that we think are happening, if that makes sense.
Good thing you clarified that, because an upset I could see happening, Springfield over Centerville. I could see that potentially being an upset and potentially being a crazy game that we see. It's, like you mentioned, two teams out of the same conference, both Centerville and Springfield out of the GWAC. Centerville won by 8 points the first time these two teams played against each other, but I could very well see it being possible. Obviously, it's going to be a road game for Springfield this time. Just with some of the struggles we've seen Centerville have on the offensive side, I have full faith in that defense. That defense for Centerville is a great, great defense. It's the offense that's been having struggles so far this year, so I wouldn't see it being completely out of the realm of possibility with how good that Springfield defense is, especially with the fact that you mentioned the health of Springfield is continuing to get better and better. The injuries were, at least as of right now, seemed like they were more of a regular season issue for Springfield, and now come postseason time, players are starting to get healthier and starting to get better and better for Springfield. So I just feel like that could be a potential upset that we see in the second round.
Matt, one upset I foresee, and going back to that Centerville-Springfield, I think you're spot on that one. I think that we can see the Springfield Wildcats take down the Centerville Elks. We saw them take down Centerville last season at Centerville Stadium in the regular season. Obviously a different Springfield team, but at the same time, Springfield is, at the end of the day, there's still Springfield. That's still a very, very good football team. Matt, I'm going to Region 8. I think Winton Woods has a chance of taking down Withrow, led by that defense. I think they're going to make it hard for the Withrow Tigers offense.
And yeah, I could see that being the case, just because, like I mentioned, I talked about Winton Woods' defense, especially the defensive line being probably the best defensive line I've seen at the high school level. Justin Hill has got so many Division I offers to play college football. Ton of Big Ten teams, ton of SEC teams on that list of teams that have sent him an offer to go play football at the next level. He is a game wrecker for that Warriors team. It's going to be a tough slate for that Withrow offense. And like I said, I don't really like using the transitive property when it comes down to comparing teams, but both of these two teams played Trotwood earlier on in the season. Both won 21-7. Exact same scoreline between both of these teams against Trotwood. Like I said, I don't like using the transitive property because Withrow versus Trotwood is completely different from Winton Woods versus Trotwood. It's two completely different teams facing off against each other. But when it comes down to it, I could see Winton Woods' defense stepping up, playing big against the Withrow Tigers, and potentially pulling off an upset in that game.
Matt, I'll also say this. I know it's your turn, but I'm gonna jump in front of you if that's okay. Region 16, Wyoming over Taft. I think that's an upset that can happen as well.
I was going to say, please don't pick the one that I've got in mind. The one I've got in mind is potentially Urbana versus Springfield Shawnee. I could see that potentially being an upset just because of how big of a win Urbana had against Chillicothe Unioto. 56-21 was the final score of that game. Also, it's a CBC matchup we have not seen so far this season. Obviously, Springfield Shawnee, the better overall record comparing the two teams, but I wouldn't say it's completely out of the realm of possibility that Urbana, as the 15 seed, absolutely goes crazy in this postseason and plays spoiler once again. But going back to Wyoming versus Taft, I could very well see Wyoming take this one just for the main reason that it's the Wyoming Cowboys. They were in the state championship game a season ago. Their quarterback knows what it's like to play at these kinds of games. Quade Hauer hasn't done horrible for the Wyoming Cowboys so far this season. Taft, their conference slate of games, not that good. The only really true test that Taft has when it comes to conference games is Withrow, and they got destroyed in that game. Not saying that Taft doesn't deserve the 3 seed. They've played a phenomenal season so far, but Wyoming is also a battle-tested team, and they have experience in the postseason. I wouldn't be surprised if Wyoming takes it.
Wyoming, that's a great team. And, Matt, I love what you said. The Central Buckeye Conference, a very tough conference. I think Shawnee will be the one to pull away in that one, but it would not. Again, we're just saying we don't think that these upsets necessarily are going to happen. It's just games that may have a more prone opportunity of having upsets. Matt, I agree with you. I think Urbana's got a chance. We've been high on Urbana all season long. And, Matt, another game I'm also looking at. This may be a hot take. This may be a bit of a hot take, but I am looking right now 6 versus 3, Salina and Trotwood Madison. Salina this season, coming from the Western Buckeye League, has put together, they played a pretty tough schedule. Obviously, they lost to Versailles in week 1. They beat Memorial. They were 7-4. They beat Van Wert. They were 8-3. They ended up beating Defiance. Defiance was 8-3. They lost big to Wapakoneta, who was 9-2. They beat Hillsborough, who was 5-6 on the season, but they won that game. And again, Matt, you take a look at the teams that they should have crushed. They did that. That's exactly what good football teams do. You handle business. You keep it close against big-time opponents. Now, obviously, a couple of blowouts not in their favor on their schedule, but the games that they should have won, they won. The games they should have won convincingly, they won convincingly. They're a disciplined football team. I'm not saying that Trotwood's losing this football game, but I do think that this is a game Salina could possibly pull an upset.
One last upset that I've got in mind and that I'm looking at, and it's funny, you talk about Region 12, it brought me to this game, Wapakoneta versus Butler. I very well could see this Butler Aviators team struggle against a very high-powered Wapakoneta offense. I mean, you take a look at Wapakoneta and what they were able to do during the regular season. Only a 3-point loss to Marion Local. You take a look at what Wapakoneta was able to do last year. Made it pretty far into the postseason before they lost to Baden. This Wapakoneta team knows what it's like being this far into the postseason. Obviously, it's only the second round, but Wapakoneta has made it to the second round of the postseason quite a bit in recent memory. And Butler, it's not that they're a new team to this, but under Zach Geith, they're a new team to this part of the postseason. So this Butler Aviators team, I think that defense is going to play well against Wapakoneta, but it's not going to be enough against Wapakoneta, and I think that that's why I'm choosing as a potential upset this 4 versus 5 matchup.
Hey, I think those are the upsets that matter. Are there any other upsets that you may have? Again, these aren't upsets that we necessarily think are going to happen. It's what could possibly happen in games that are maybe more prone to seeing an upset.
Maybe Moeller St. X. That could be an upset too.
We mentioned earlier in the show, McNicholas, Clinton, Massey. I don't necessarily foresee that happening, but obviously it's playoff football. Anything can happen, so we'll just have to wait and see. And that'll bring us into our game pick segment. We'll make those when we return. Week 12 game picks coming up next.
At McAfee, we understand that life doesn't stop when something in your home breaks down. Our customers count on us to be there, ready when they need us.
Is there anything else you need from me?
No, sir, I have all the information I need.
Great, thanks. Just lock the door on the way out.
Thank you.
Let us get your home up and running again. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
Help with anything, Gigi?
At McAfee, we understand that life doesn't stop when something in your home breaks down.
Go. It's okay.
Our customers count on us to be there, ready when they need us.
Is there anything else you need from me?
No, sir, I have all the information I need.
Great, thanks. Just lock the door on the way out.
Thank you.
Let us get your home up and running again. Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
We welcome you back here to the TKDS Sports Network. Jackson Lightcap alongside Matthew Pennington. Playoff volleyball coming up today on the TKDS Sports Network. It is district finals coming up. We will have two brackets for you. Kevin Fowler will be on the call at Butler, game times 4 and 6. I'll be on the call at Lakota East, game times 2 and 4 p.m. Eastern time. Let's move on to our game picks. And Matt, we had some moving around when it comes to our game picks. Matt, in fact, this week, you were the only team and the only person to have a positive week. Everybody else finished below 500. Tim went 1-4. I went 2-3. David went 1-4. Kevin went 2-3. John went 1-4. You went 3-2. The only one over 500. And Tim Capel, who was in first place for the TKDS Sports Network all season long, has been bumped by Matt for second place. Leading the way right now is Matthew Pennington. He sits at a 39-18 record. Tim Capel still in the running. He sits in second, 38-19, 1 game back. I sit in third, 36-21 with 3 games back. David, he had a great season, but an 0-5 week certainly has plagued him. He sits in fourth, 6 games back from first, 6 games back from first, 33-24. Kevin jumps John out of the last place spot. He sits in fifth, 31-26, 8 games back. And John, he sits in the bottom and in the basement, 30-27, 9 games back from first. Hey, everyone's over 500. Kudos to us, I guess.
And yeah, I keep saying it, but it's just the fact that I have not been below 500 on a week since I made this remark. I remember my 1-4 week. I'm like, dude, I need to turn something around. I need to figure out what's going on. Since then, that's when I've been able, since that moment, I've clawed my way back and jumped up into first.
23-4, aren't you? Since
23-4 since I said that I needed
over
to
the
turn
last
things
5
around.
over the last 5 weeks, 23-4.
And I've only missed picks the last 2 weeks. I've only gotten picks wrong the last 2 weeks too.
All right, well, I guess gloat yourself.
Hey, I was completely, I'm being dead serious. I was completely surprised when I took a look at everybody's weeks. I thought that me and like 2 other people would have shared a 3-2 record, because after last night I was like, man, I don't feel like I did that good when it came to my picks. And then I take a look at the standings and I realized that somehow I was the only person to go 3-2 on the week. And I'm completely surprised that I was the only person above 500 last week.
Yeah, it was not a great week for any of us, to say the least.
I felt early on, too, because I was taking a look at a bunch of the scores. I felt like I was going to be like 1-4 or 2-3, but then Whitten Woods came back and clawed their way back in that game. And then McNicholas Eaton was the other game that I was feeling all right about. And then McNicholas ended up jumping off to a pretty big lead in that one. So after that, I felt pretty confident about that one being right.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt, let's get into it. 10 picks this week. It's week 12. It's playoffs. Things are heating up. We're going with 10 picks. Matt, you start us off. Week 12, Mason at Milford.
Oh, boy, I hate that I have to start this one off. I'm going to go with Milford in this one. They've got the home field advantage against Mason. I've got a feeling that Milford's offensive line is going to continue to improve on the season. Mason's defense is going to play phenomenally, but Milford's defense is also very, very tough to play against. There's a little bit of a difference for Mason's offense going against Milford as opposed to Lebanon. Lebanon's defense wasn't really able to do too much. Milford's defense, I feel like, is going to be able to do just enough, but it's going to be a close game. I've got Milford winning this. I'm going to say lower scoring game. I'm going to say 14-13.
Matt, I'm going to have to agree with you on this one. I'm going to go with the Milford Eagles. I think Milford, that offense is very good, and, that defense is sneaky good. When you take a look at the Milford Eagles, the game against Winton Woods comes to mind. We thought that was going to be a defensive game in Winton Woods' favor because of that great defense. But guess what? When Milford struggled offensively in that game, Winton Woods' defense, they came to play. Milford, when they've struggled this season offensively, who stepped up? That defense. I'm expecting the same here in this one. I think Milford's defense is able to step up, and I think Mason's defense will step up. It's going to be a defensive matchup. Give me Milford in this one. I'm going to go a low score, 7-3.
It's definitely going to be a defensive matchup between both of these teams.
I think Milford just edges it out, 7-3. It would not shock me to see that touchdown be a defensive touchdown in this one. Heading on to game number 2, Withrow versus Winton Woods. Winton Woods on the road against the Withrow Tigers.
You go first on this
it's
one.
my turn.
I went first on the last one. Don't try to throw me in first twice in a row.
Oh boy,
have fun.
I should have gone first.
The first one.
I'm going to choose the team that starts with a W.
You're cheating.
Withrow, they got a great offense. Winton Woods, they have a great defense. To me, I feel like Winton Woods' defense is going to come to play, and I think Winton Woods, I think the Warriors, they've played the tougher schedule. When it comes to consistent, tough schedule, it's been Winton Woods. Yes, Withrow, yes, they played Trotwood, but so did Winton Woods. Yes, Withrow, yes, they played St. X. They kept it close. That schedule for Withrow has been tough, but I don't think it's been as tough as Winton Woods running through the gauntlet that we call the Eastern Cincinnati Conference. Give me Winton Woods in this one. They're going to have to win once again, another defensive game. I think Winton Woods in this one, I'm going to go, oh boy, I'm going to go 6-3. Touchdown and a missed extra point.
That would be the
similar to what the Milford Mason score I had was. I'm going Winton Woods, though.
That would be the Winton Woods way to win the football game, get the touchdown, but not kick the extra point. But I'm going to go with the Tigers in this one. I've got a lot of confidence in that Winton Woods defense. I do not have as much confidence in that offense for Winton Woods. Withrow's offense, on the other hand, explosive all season long. It's obviously going to be a little bit different against a very, very tough Winton Woods defense, but Withrow's offense has proven themselves to be a contender all season long. I'm going to go with the Withrow Tigers in this one. I would say, give me the same score as the St. X game, except Withrow is going to be on top, 14-10.
Moving on, let's move on to our third matchup that we have. That is Springfield at Centerville.
I'm going to go with the Elks in this one. I've got trust in that rushing defense. Springfield, obviously more of a rushing-heavy team so far this year. We saw what Centerville's defense did against the Fairmont Firebirds, one of the best rushing teams in the southwest region of Ohio. The reason I say that is they run the triple option. Everybody knows what's coming, and they still perform at high levels for the Fairmont Firebirds. So I'm going to go with the Centerville Elks in this one. The rushing defense is going to start off a little bit slow against Springfield, but as the game goes on, they're going to key in. They're going to stop the rushing attack from the Wildcats. They're going to force the Wildcats to start throwing the football, and that's where the secondary for the Centerville Elks is going to make them pay. Give me a final score, 21-10.
I'm going to go with Centerville in this one as well. I think that, just as you mentioned, that defense for the Centerville Elks is absolutely incredible. So when it comes down to it, I'm going to have to go with Centerville. I like the defense for the Elks. The offense, they've done just enough all season long to get the win. Guess what? Who wins championships? The defense does. Give me Centerville in this one. Matt, I like your score prediction. I'm going to tweak it a little bit. I'm going Centerville in this one, 21-13. I think Springfield will get an extra field goal. Moving on, Tri-Village, West Liberty Salem. It's my turn to start it, and man, I'm getting all the tough ones today.
Oh, you got a fun one next, too. You got Hamilton Princeton next.
Oh boy.
'Cause I got New Bremen.
Tri
Minster to
Village,
start.
West Liberty Salem. I'm gonna go West Liberty Salem. I think that's a great team. I mean, when you take a look at West Liberty Salem, what they've been able to do, explosive on offense this season, the lowest amount of points they've put up in a game, 19. Outside of that game, their lowest amount of points, 35. They absolutely steamrolled everyone they played, minus West Jefferson, in a very tough Ohio Heritage Conference. You look at Tri Village, their only loss on the season to Ansonia. You look at West Liberty Salem, their only loss on the season to West Jefferson. I like West Liberty Salem's offense. 426 points scored through the regular season, averaging just under 43 points per game and allowing just under 17 points per game. West Liberty Salem, they're a complete team. I think they show that. They have home field on their side. That's one of the reasons why I'm going with West Liberty Salem. I'm going with West Liberty Salem in this one. Give me a final score. I think it's going to be a shootout. Final score, 42-38.
I think it's going to be a similar score, but I'm going to go with the Patriots in this one. Give me Tri Village. I think, like you mentioned, the offensive shootout. I think that's what we're going to see from both of these teams. Both teams' offenses have been prolific so far this season, but I'm going to go with the Patriots in this one. Give me a final score. I'm going to say 38-35.
All right, and last but not least for this segment, New Bremen at Minster.
I'm going to go with Minster in this one. Cardinals, huge upset, 13-4 in the first round of the postseason against Cincinnati College Prep. But Minster, this Wildcats team, you just get the feeling that they played Minster. They played New Bremen recently in the regular season, right before their game against Versailles. They beat them 40-14. That was week 9. So Minster knows what's coming in this game against New Bremen. It was home the first time they played against the Cardinals. It's going to be home this time around. And then after that game against New Bremen, the Wildcats had a very tough and almost postseason prep game against Versailles for the final week of the regular season. They lost that game by a touchdown. 21-14 was the final score of it. I'm going to go with the Wildcats in this one. It's not going to be as big of a win as we saw in week 9, but give me Minster. I'm going to go 31-20.
You took the score out of my mouth. I'm going Minster as well. Give me Minster. If it wasn't a MAC team going up against a MAC team, I would have gone with the MAC team, which would have been New Bremen. But Minster, just as you mentioned, Matt, 40-14 win back in week 9. I don't think that gives New Bremen a whole lot of time to adjust. They're coming off a great upset win. This is a New Bremen team that can get another upset and can make a run. But frankly, it's just not the same New Bremen Cardinal team that we saw from a year ago. Give me Minster in this one. Since you went 31-20, I'm going to go a little bit more offensive to change it away from you. Give me 34-24 in this one. And Matt, I will say this. For the record, we submit our picks in our messages. I am going to go back and change one of my picks. It's Withrow, Winton Woods. I went back and I looked at some other stats. And just by kind of looking at the other stats, I am going to change my pick away from Winton Woods and go with Withrow. Every other pick, though, I'm keeping the same. So I am going to go with Withrow in that one over Winton Woods. I know I originally claimed Winton Woods. I had some time to think about it. I had some time to go and do a little bit more in-depth research while you were talking. And, hey, I'm going with Withrow in that one. Time for a break. Second half of Game Picks coming up when we return.
It's easy to take the air in your home for granted. But it's not just about being hot or cold. It's about having clean air. For some of us, this is critical. At McAfee, we'll provide you with long-term solutions to improve the air you breathe.
Do you need your inhaler, bud? Oh, I'm good, thanks.
Breathe easy. Choose McAfee. It's easy to take the air in your home for granted. But it's not just about being hot or cold. It's about having clean air. For some of us, this is critical. At McAfee, we'll provide you with long-term solutions to improve the air you breathe.
Do you need your inhaler, bud? Oh, I'm good, thanks.
Breathe easy. Choose McAfee. It's easy to take the air in your home for granted. But it's not just about being hot or cold. It's about having clean air. For some of us, this is critical. At McAfee, we'll provide you with long-term solutions to improve the air you breathe.
Do you need your inhaler, bud? Oh, I'm good, thanks.
Breathe easy. Choose McAfee. It's easy to take the air in your home for granted. But it's not just about being hot or cold. It's about having clean air. For some of us, this is critical. At McAfee, we'll provide you with long-term solutions to improve the air you breathe.
Do you need your inhaler, bud? Oh, I'm good, thanks.
Breathe easy. Choose McAfee.
We welcome you back here in the final segment of this 3-hour show, and we still have our second half of Game Picks. Ladies and gentlemen, just another reminder, make sure to give us your Game Picks in the chat. They're all typed in there. Our producer, Kevin Fowler, back at base, doing a great job trying to run the chat. So anybody out there who wants to submit their Game Picks, make sure to submit them into the chat. Moving on, I'll start off segment number 2, Hamilton at Princeton. Matt, this is a hard one to pick, but I'm going with the Princeton Vikings in this one. The Princeton Vikings, when they last played each other, won the turnover battle. I think that continues. That Princeton defense, very, very good. I like Hamilton and what they bring to the table, but this game is going to be won once again by the Princeton Vikings and that turnover differential. I think Princeton wins this one. Similar score to what we saw last time. I think it's going to be closer, though. 21-20. Princeton Vikings end up winning it. And I think Hamilton, they will turn over the ball just once, and that once will be enough for Princeton to get a win.
I'm going to go with the Princeton Vikings as well in this game. Ever since that game against Hamilton, I think it went Hamilton-Mason and then a little bit of an easier schedule for Princeton. But since those two games, Princeton's offense has turned it up when it comes to the amount of points they're putting up per game. Obviously, it's not against as tough a competition as Princeton faced in the first half of the season, but the offense is doing what the offense needs to be doing against teams that aren't towards the top of the GMC, and that's playing dominant. I'm going to go with the Princeton Vikings in this one. I think it's going to be a little bit bigger of a win, but not by much. I'm going to go final score 27-17.
Moving on, Elder at Lakota West.
I'm going to go with the Firebirds in this one. If it was played in the pit, I'd go with Elder, but since it's being played at home for Lakota West, it's obviously not going to be an easy matchup against Elder, but I've got confidence in this Lakota West team. Started off the season 0-2, struggled through the first 2 games, but those first 2 games was against St. Xavier and Princeton. 2 really, really tough teams, and since then, Lakota West has been on a tear. They've not lost a game since those first 2 weeks of the season. I don't see that continuing next week, next Friday when these 2 teams face off against each other. Give me Lakota West. It's going to be a close game, 27-21.
This is tough. This is a tough one because you look at the schedule that Elder has played. They lost by 1 to St. Edwards. They lost by 4 to Pickerington North. 2 of the top teams, well, St. Edwards is the top team in the state of Ohio. But then you also look at what they've done. They beat St. Xavier from Kentucky. They beat St. Xavier of Ohio. They ended up beating Life Christian Academy from Virginia. They beat LaSalle, but then they turn around and lose to Moeller. And if you lose to St. Ed's by 1, frankly, when it comes down to it, you should keep it pretty close to Moeller. They lost by 31. This is an Elder team that has been very inconsistent. And Matt, if this matchup was earlier in the year, I think Elder wins this home or away. But it seems like as the season has gone on, the Elder Panthers have gotten a lot more inconsistent, only beating Oak Hills by 14, only beating LaSalle by 6. A loss a few weeks ago against Bishop Chatard back on Friday the 13th, October Friday the 13th from Indiana, 34-7. This is an Elders team that it seems like has not gotten better as the season's gone on, but has stayed stagnant or has even dropped off a little bit as the season's gone on. On the road, I'm going Lakota West. At home, I might still pick Elder, but I'm going to go with Lakota West Firebirds. This game is in Westchester. I like what Lakota West is bringing to the table. Hey, it's going to be a great football game nonetheless. And how about this? This could be a big rivalry game. Possible game of the state. Moeller, St. X.
You got this one.
I got this one.
Go for it.
Oh, man. I should have
fun.
I should have gone first. I should have made you go second. I run the show, and I still gave myself the disadvantage.
You messed up.
Oh, boy.
I know who I'm going in this one, but I'm not going
and
first.
I do, too. I'm going Moeller. I'm going the Crusaders in this one. Crusaders, that is a very underrated team. Again, just like Elder, you look at who they played. They've played some of the top teams in Ohio. They've played some of the top teams in the country. They've played some of the top teams in Indiana. They've played some of the top teams in Michigan. They've played a very, 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 very tough schedule, and they've handled it pretty well. They finished the regular season 6-4. Their 4 losses, St. Edwards, number 1 team in Ohio, 28-21. Center Grove, Indiana, one of the top teams in Indiana, 35-34. East Central, one of the top teams in Indiana, 38-28. Ben Davis, another top team in Indiana, 49-28. This is a Moeller team that, especially past week 4, since week 4, they've lost 1 game, and that was to St. Edwards. That's the reason why I'm going with the Moeller Crusaders in this one. I like what the Crusaders bring to the table. That's an underrated football team. We will see them in the regional semifinals or regional finals once again later on this season. To get to there, you got to beat St. X. Give me Moeller.
I'm going to go with Moeller as well in this one. They've already taken down St. Xavier earlier on in the season. 20-10 was the final score of that game. That was a home game for Moeller. Now they're on the road against St. Xavier. But as you mentioned, this Moeller team, they've played some of the best teams in the entire country, some of the best teams in the entire state of Indiana, and even in our state of Ohio. So this Moeller Crusaders team, they are battle-tested. They have played a very, very tough schedule so far this season, and they've already taken down this St. Xavier team once this year. Obviously, it's tough to take down the same GCL South team twice in the same year, but I feel like this Moeller Crusaders team, especially with Marshall at the helm of that offense running the football, he is arguably one of, if not the best running backs in the entire state of Ohio. Give me the Moeller Crusaders in this one. I'm going to say 28-20.
Urbana versus Shawnee.
I'm going to go with Springfield Shawnee in this one. Urbana, obviously pulling off probably the upset in the entire state of Ohio, winning as the 15 seed over Chillicothe Unioto pretty big. But this Springfield Shawnee team has played a very, very tough schedule so far this year. When it comes down to strength of competition, the London Red Raiders come up as one of the teams that you take a look at. Shawnee, 26-14 was the final score of that game. It's one of the closest games London has played all season long. That's not the only reason I'm going with Shawnee in this game. It's just it comes down to the strength of competition that Shawnee has played, how close they've played against that tough competition all season long. Urbana just lost to London in the last game of the regular season, 49-7. I'm going to go with Springfield Shawnee in this one. Give me 35-21.
I'm going Shawnee in this one as well. Shawnee, I think that they're just frankly the better football team. I love Urbana. I love that fairy tale story that they've had this season. I've been high on the Hill Climbers, but Shawnee, that's another underrated team coming out of the Central Buckeye Conference. That's a tough conference. It's an in-conference game. Shawnee, though, I think that they're just frankly the better team at home. Give me Shawnee in this one. And Wapakoneta versus Butler. I'll start this one off. I'm calling an upset. Wapakoneta, that offense prevails over that Butler defense.
Yeah, I'm going with Wapakoneta in this one as well. Butler, they're newer to this situation and newer to this area in this level of football when it comes to Zach Geith as the head coach of this Aviators team. Obviously, Butler has been phenomenal so far this season, but Wapakoneta has been here. Wapakoneta has been in this position when it comes to this stage of the postseason, and I'm going to go with Wapakoneta final score, let's say 27-14.
And hey, that'll take us to the end of our 3-hour show. Playoff volleyball coming up today. Make sure to tune into the TKDS Sports Network and NFHS Network. Lakota East, their brackets, the district finals. First serve, 2 o'clock, and then again at 4 o'clock. And then at Butler, first serve, 4 o'clock and 6 o'clock. Matt, any final words before we close it out?
I've got nothing. I'm just ready for round 2 of the postseason.
Round 2 of the postseason coming up next. Alongside Matthew Pennington, Jonathan Snyder early on in the show, I'm Jackson Lightcap. Our producer is Sebastian McCrae, Kevin Fowler. Thanks for joining us. Tune in Monday, 4 to 6, Sports Now. We'll talk to you then, but until then, thanks for dealing with us. Happy weekend.